Millionaires are lonely, really, really lonely people, because everybody wants to get money from them, and their wives don't like them, the kids don't like them. I'm like, man, that will not be me.
40 years, one man has dominated energy investments, Troy Eckard.
Turning oil and gas into unstoppable opportunities.
I started this investment firm from zero ground at 26 years old.
So you went all in on it.
Right now we have 2,700 accounts, and we probably have 2,000 plus millionaires, and they've invested almost $900 plus million with us.
Oh man.
I'm the most fierce warrior you're ever going to meet to protect your money.
You started the business. It didn't go so easy, right?
Oh man, no. I always say you're either running from something or you're running to something. I was running away from poverty. I was living in the back of a RV travel trailer park in college. I was a manager of a pizza joint. I delivered pizza, and I also had a job doing wallpaper hanging. I pretty much worked 80, 90 hours a week.
So you go from just cruising on millions and things work into a completely different world.
I'm going to share this with you. So I've got a bank note, and it's about $340,000 note, and the bank says, you've got to pay that in 30 days, or we're going to have to start taking back assets. And I go, I can't make that payment. I'm talking to one of my lawyers on the phone, he goes, you're in bad shape. I just spent 13 years for zero, for nothing. And everything I worked for 13 years is gone. I get a call from a buddy of mine. He goes, they want to buy our dry hole for like $750,000. So my house closed, I had the cash, closed this guy, and that's how I got back on my feet, one step at a time, one brick at a time. Trust me, 95% of what you think is going to go wrong never happens. Omar, here's what really makes the difference for me in business.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Passionate Few podcast. It's your host, Omar here, and today we have an incredible guest, none other than my man, Troy Eckard of Eckard Enterprises. He's the chairman of a company that's doing almost $1 billion in assets under management. And today we're gonna get to pick his mind and hear his incredible story right here in Dallas, Texas. Thanks so much for being on the show today,
Thanks,
Troy.
Omar, appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having us here in your beautiful office.
Yeah, no problem. It's a little outcast today, but we could use the moisture. So
Yep,
it's a good day.
Absolutely. Well, we'll bring some brightness with this combo, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
So we'll talk a little bit about your story and how you got into it, but high level, can you give the audience a little bit of context, what you do in the oil and gas industry, what's the scope and size of your business, and who are some of your clientele, just so they can kind of know the Troy Eckard of today before we get into your sort of humble beginnings.
In simple explanation, what our company does is we use our team, our intellectual team, to identify oil and gas assets, pipelines, drilling, oil and gas mineral rights that we acquire, and then we invite our high net worth investors to participate in those assets in a direct basis. We buy 10 million, we'll keep 2 million, we offer the other 8 million out to private investors. Our investors are people who have $1 million net worth. They're people who own doctor's practices, dentists, doctors, lawyers, engineers, farmers, ranchers, lawyers. And what they're trying to do is own direct assets. And it's very difficult to find somebody who can source that for them. And then we provide all the back office and all the operations. So it's a fully functional, fully integrated energy family company. My son-in-law is my son, my daughter works for me. So it's part of a business that is evolved over 40 years. And what we do, we've connected the asset with the capital, which nobody else has been able to do.
And when you guys say assets under management, what does that mean and what's the scope of it?
Well, I don't know what the number is today, but we're probably pushing $900 plus million as of today. And what that means is we've gone out and acquired, and then we brought in capital to secure about $900 million worth of assets. We're negotiating a $160 million transaction today. So I'm hopeful in the next 30 days, we're well over $1 billion, and I think next year will be even better. So things have gone well, and the capital raising has been extremely successful. The results have been extremely successful, but we've kind of put ourselves in a position we've never been in before, which is now we're leading the industry both in terms of financial markets as well as the oil and gas market at this level.
And it's really interesting because what you do today is something not really talked about in media, right? It's pretty unique to be in the oil and gas industry. The energy space is not well talked about. But can you give the audience a little bit of context of exactly what the energy industry is, particularly as it relates to oil and gas, for someone who knows nothing, say the average person, just so they can understand the nature of the business and its value to the marketplace and why it's so profitable as such a scarce resource?
So I would say the best analogy I give all the time is that probably 9 out of 10 of my high net worth clients own real estate, or they've invested in real estate, apartment complexes, self-storage, et cetera. Oil and gas the exact same way. Part of the industry is what we call the upstream. You go out and get a piece of raw land, you entitle it, you get it annexed. In oil and gas, we go out and lease the mineral rights from the mineral owner. The mineral owner then gets a fee and part of the profit for free. They get a royalty income. And that raw land developer is the oil company. We see an idea, we see the geology, we want to go to drill a well, we anticipate oil and gas to be below the ground. We'll get the second part, which is going out and getting the general contractor who's going to get the bids and drill the well. So that upstream is everything from the idea until it comes out of the wellhead, which is called raw mix production. The second middle part is what I call a developer, like in real estate. The guy who's going to build the big box in the retail center. That is going to be somebody who's going to pick up that oil and gas, build the infrastructure, the pipeline, the gas plant, get it from the field to the refineries where it can be processed, and then downstream goes from the refinery to your home, either in the form of gasoline in your car, plastics, and all the other byproducts of oil and gas. So it's a three-phase system. We only focus about 90% of our attention in the upstream, mineral rights, drilling, and production. We do about 10% in the pipeline and midstream space, and we don't touch the downstream because it's way beyond our financial means. It's the refineries, the Valeros, the big boys.
The Exxons.
It's the Exxons. It's the Kinder Morgans of the world, where you're downstream supplying the city of Philadelphia gas. We just don't get into that market.
And so when you talk about building this business, you've done it over decades. But people might hear you today and think you're so brilliant in the industry, but you actually come from very humble beginnings. I'm sure you never imagined that you would come from a single mother household in Texas to be where you're at today. So can you talk a little bit about your actual backstory, where you grew up, what your childhood was like, just to kind of learn about Detroit early on before he became, this billion-dollar investment guy?
Yeah, I think the simplest thing is my mother was a single mom raising 4 kids. Met a guy at a dance club one night. They met, enjoyed life. They dated for about 90 days. Then he married my mother, and then after about 6 months, he decided he wanted to legally adopt us, which he did. His name was Alfred Edwin Eckard Jr. And our last name was Exum, E-X-U-M. And after they got married, we agreed, and my biological father, wherever he was, I never met him, agreed to allow us to be adopted. So my name became Troy William Eckard. I used to joke, I said, Mom, you must have been really, really hard at work. And she goes, why is that? To find another guy that had the last name starting with an E, so it wouldn't mess up my monogram, so that way I could have TWE. And so the joke was that she had to find somebody that would fit the bill. The bill was 3 sisters, 1 son, and he adopted us. And so that's why the company Eckard is named after my dad. He was a true father. He was a mentor. He wasn't the business acumen. He didn't come from a big background. He was just a good salesman. He had a very, I consider today, a medium to low paying job. Incredible father, but the life lessons he gave me was what was most important. So as I went to college and I'm working 3 jobs and starving to death, living in a travel trailer, and just trying to pay the bills because my parents had no money.
They always had no money?
0 money. So
did your mom have a lot of jobs growing up, or what did you witness growing up with your siblings? Just to give the audience context.
Poverty.
Really?
Poverty. Well, I call it poverty because when you're 8, 9, 10 years old and you get up in the morning and there's no milk and your mom puts down a box of carnation powdered milk and says, see that water, see this powder mixed together, that's what's in your cereal. You're like, I don't think anybody else is eating this powder like that, right? My family, we never didn't have a roof over our head, but the fighting in the family was never about not liking it. It was like, how do we pay the bill? How do we get the groceries? How do we fix the car? And so at a very early age, being very aware, I'm very keen and very detail oriented. I said, they don't have money, which causes the fights. I never want to not be in that position. I never want to be in that position. So at 10 years old, I'm in the backyard and there was a guy plowing a field across me with an orange grove. And I walked over there at 10 years old and said, is there any kind of a job? Is there any kind of job that you can actually put me to work in? And the guy said, well, I need vines pulled. He said, I said, I'll do it every day during summer. He said, all right, do that. And the guy paid me like 50 cents an hour, but I had money in my pocket. And so for me, I learned the lesson of put yourself to work, make money. You're less of a burden to your parents. And then by the time I was 17, my sister who was graduating that year was a senior. My mom says, we have no money for your sister's senior photographs, no money for her clothes. Can you lend us money? And I said, yeah, how much do you need? She said, $600. I said, here, let me go get the money. Here's $600. I'll pay you back. I said, you don't have to pay me back, it's yours.
Wow.
And so when you start thinking in terms of that, you start thinking about, wow, my parents were great parents. They loved me. But man, they were fighting every day just to keep the lights on. They were fighting every day to keep the bills.
Do you remember those fights early on, how they affected you and the siblings?
Oh yeah, big time. It was real simple. I did not want to be a burden. And I always say you're either running from something or you're running to something. You either see an opportunity, you're running to it because you're excited, or you're running away from something. I was running away from poverty. I was running away from the idea that if not having money gave me no freedom, if not having money caused me to have a fight, to not be able to put food on the table, tell my kids you don't have any, then I'm going to get 2, 3, 5 jobs because what I have is brains and I have energy. So how do I do it? The problem is I didn't have any guidance. When you have 2 parents that are college dropouts, they're just making basically minimal income as a married couple. You start thinking, well, who do I go to for advice? And I was a very proactive person. So, man, I was probably the most suspended guy in my high school because it was the truth, because I was always asking why. Well, we need to do this. Well, how come? Well, it's none of your business. You just do it. Well, it is my business. If you want to motivate me, then explain it to me, encourage me. So that's kind of how I built my company. Is you can't get people to buy in if you don't tell them what they're buying into. And so all during high school, I take the test to get an A without even studying. I always had great grades. I was third in my class, all that nonsense, right? But man, my brain was on fire. So I'm looking at what I can do. I had 3 and 4 jobs by the time I was 14 and 15 years old. I was working everywhere. So I always had cash.
And were you getting in fights, or what were you getting suspended over?
Pretty much everything.
Really?
I got suspended 3 times in one day. I got in a fight early in the morning, 8 o'clock. I was suspended from a teacher I mouthed off to the day before, but he had time to turn the suspense. And then on the way from the fight to my locker, I smarted off to another teacher. So I thought by the time I got back, my head coach goes, "You got 3 suspensions. You've been gone 10 minutes." I go, "Yeah, I know."
New record.
New record. But but what it taught me was multiple things. One, you got to fight for your rights. Number 2, you kind of make your own path. Stop crying. If you're a smart aleck, you got to pay the consequences. If you're going to get in a fight, pay the consequences. So those things were embedded in me. I was in sports, thank goodness. Sports kept me from going to jail. I had a very good bunch of coaches. They cared beyond just coaching. They knew I had potential. They overlooked the fact that I was rough around the edges. But the one thing about it is people that are teaching you and coaching you or mentoring you, they don't know what goes on after 5 o'clock in the house. They don't know.
Right.
You don't have food. Your parents are getting divorced. Your mom's an alcoholic, whatever the answer is. So it helped me build my company because I could see my employees going, I don't know what they're dealing with at night. Kid with the measles, a divorce, an affair, financial stress. And all that goes into what makes you a better business person. And it also makes you more aware of opportunity because you're thinking every minute of every day, I have to be aware of my surroundings. One, for defensive measures, because when you're a scrawny little kid like I was, 80 pounds, freckle face, blonde hair, you're getting pulverized by guys bigger than you because you look like somebody they can beat up. So eventually you say, come one, come all. I don't care what your size is, I'll take you on. Well, that also happens in this business of oil and gas. You're out competing with the Exxons and the Chevrons, and you're this small energy company going like, I was told 5 years ago when we started this, you're never going to make any headway. You're brand new at buying oil and gas mineral rights. We don't even know who you are. In fact, the first 4 or 5 companies wouldn't even take my phone call.
Wow.
So one company took the call. I set the meeting up. I drive 3 hours, showed up in Oklahoma City at 7:45 in the morning. I left about 3:30, got there, had breakfast, waited for them at the door. And they said, "We want to work for you." I go, everybody else says no because we don't know who you are. You could be the next Exxon or you could be a nobody, but if you pay your bills and hire us, we'll do the work for you.
Wow.
So here I am now, and every one of those companies either call me now wanting business, like, "Oh, do you remember me?" Because I don't remember you, because 5 years ago you wouldn't talk to me.
So you, when you had this drive early on to be successful, obviously you didn't know you would channel it here. You had all these sort of odd jobs in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And you worked your way up. What were some of the jobs you had leading up to actually getting into oil and gas?
Man, they're horrible jobs, but yeah. So one summer I was working at a farmer's co-op, and I'd show up at 6, and I ran the chemical department loading fertilizers and driving all of ranches and farms all over the place. 5 o'clock, I'd get in my truck and I'd drive 20 miles to the next neighboring town, switch into a Hardee's hamburger outfit to go serve burgers till 10:30 at night. And then on Saturdays, I ran a cattle yard. So I worked 5 days a week at the co-op. I'd work at the cattle yard on Saturdays and Sundays, and I'd work 5 nights a week at the hamburger joint.
How old are you?
16, 17 years old.
And how much were you making at that time? Do you remember?
I think minimum wage was $1.85 at the time, you know.
Wow.
I remember driving a tractor through this field. I'm real good with math. I was driving this field. I said, okay, I got this many rows. I'm driving this tractor. I'm frying out here. I got bugs in my face. I said, I'm going to measure how long it takes. So I timed myself going up down the rows. And I said, if I do this at the age of 17 to the time I'm 65, I'm going to make about $93,850 if I do this for the next 40 years. I said, I'm out of here. So I told my dad, I said, I am getting out of here. This is poverty. There's no chance. I have no way of getting out of here. I have to go see the world, and I've got to go take on challenges.
And did that stepdad inspire a lot of your personal development? Because before that, you didn't have maybe the right example, the right masculine example, so to speak?
Oh, he made me the man. When my mom married my dad, I was sitting down peeing when I was 4 because my 3 sisters were raising me. My mom was a working mom. I had 3 sisters. He got married and he goes, what the hell is he doing? Well, that's what he knows. He's imitating his sister. He goes, I don't know. I'm taking him under my wing. So he personally took me under his wing, showed me how to be a man, made me who I am. What he added was not the business. What he added is he would say things like, you have a very articulate way of speaking. Don't ever abuse your word. Don't abuse who you are. You can influence people. God's given you a talent. Use it for good things. You're very, very creative. create things in the right way. Don't be creating things in a bad way. He was a good disciplinarian, but a fair disciplinarian, right? But he also, like breaking a stallion, he knew he had a stallion. He's like, if I break his spirit, he becomes a gelding. If I garnish his spirit, no telling where he's going. So today for me, it's really kind of cool because I wish he were alive. He died 30 years ago of brain cancer after 25 years married to my mother, right? And so I look at it and think, he gave me the elements I needed, which is character, ethics, integrity, honesty. All those things were highly important to him. That's what I carry today. But the business side, he had no advice. He never went. He went to college a little bit, didn't know what to do. My mother had no clue what to do. And to this, when I was probably in my 30s, my grandmother said, only Troy could become who he is because he had the skills, but he also knew how to go find the opportunity. I was always exploring as a kid, man. I'd be on a tractor going down canal banks, finding all kinds of cool places. I'm a putzer. I love exploring. So that's why in business, I'm always digging. Somebody said, well, don't talk to that guy. He sells water tanks. Why would you talk to him? Well, who knows? Maybe water tanks will make money. I said, but besides that, it involves real estate, it involves a product. I want to go talk to him. I found some of my best transactions, my best assets by being a putzer.
I love that. And it's funny, it goes to speak how you were never till this day, never stopped being a student, Never. You're always learning, always getting to learn things. Even off camera, you're asking great questions and you have this this curiosity. And I guess as an investor and somebody who's always learning, cutting edge, you have to be at the top of things, and it plays to your personality too, being into the details. I'm curious, did your stepfather, and I know that you named the company Eckard Enterprises after him because of a lot of the personal development and stuff he instilled in you. But do you find that it sort of over time shifted, meaning there were seeds of that and then you took it to the next level? Was the goal to aim it at turning it into a business, or were you just trying to kind of be the best person you can, get out of your financial situation and figure it out from there?
I think there was two things involved in it. Number one, in the investment world, it's made up of so many crooks and liars and cheats. I'm talking from the security side, I'm talking investment brokerage firms, I'm talking people selling assets, I don't care at what level, insurance salesmen. It's 85% crooks. They just don't know how to tell the truth. So when I started my career and I had the opportunity to have my own investment firm at the age of 26.
What were you doing right before that?
I was a broker.
Okay, so take the audience from flipping the burgers and some of those odd jobs. Where was the first opportunity of, oil and gas? What is that? What was step one?
Step one is I was living in the back of a RV travel trailer park in college, me and the other guys that were not legally documented, and starving to death with a travel trailer with more holes in it than a radiator. Starving to death, working 3 and 4 jobs. And
construction jobs or?
Everything. I did landscaping by hand. I was a manager of a pizza joint. I delivered pizza, and I also had a job doing wallpaper hanging. I pretty much worked 80, 90 hours a week.
Wow. And you're in your 20s at this point.
I'm 18, 19 years old.
Wow.
I'm just a kid. I went to college at 17.
Yeah.
And so I'm starving to death, but I'm paying my own bills, my own car, my own insurance, my own food. But I'm back in this trailer park, and I get a call from my stepbrother. And it was my adoptive dad's real son. And he was an okay guy, but he called me and said, hey, I want to come through town and see you. I haven't seen you in a couple of years. I said, okay, I'll meet you up at the IHOP. So I go up to the IHOP, I meet him, and I'm like skinny. I'm like 170 pounds. I got fever. He goes, God, you look horrible. I go, well, I got 3 jobs. I'm trying to get through college, trying to get a finance economics degree, want to go get a job. He goes, why don't you come to Dallas, live with me for a couple of months, try being an investment broker, we'll get your license. If you like it, you can finish college up in Dallas. And if you don't, I'll pay you more than what you'd make here. You get a little experience, put it on your resume, you go back to college. I said, okay. So I come to Dallas. I try it out for 6 or 8 weeks. I suck. I'm terrible. I can't get $20 out of my parents. You want me to call an investor and get 25 or 50,000 investment? Didn't work. So right before I was about to go back to college around the end of July, my birthday, and my stepbrother said, well, I guess it's just not working out for you. I go, yeah, it sucks. I said, these other guys are not very good.
And you knew nothing about
I knew nothing. I mean, but
zero. But you just wanted to change your life, and so you said yes to that opportunity.
I said yes. I had nothing to lose because I was starving to death.
And I think there's so many people are in situations in life where they might be starving to death metaphorically. Things are presented to them and they never take it. So that speaks to you to that you never know that one yes that could turn it around.
You run away from something or you run to something. The something I had was finish college, broke, starving to death, and get a degree, and then what? Or take 90-day chance, go to summer, go to big Dallas that I'd never been to before, drive up my little pickup truck.
Where'd you grow up in Texas?
South Texas, along the Mexican border down near Harlingen and Brownsville. I mean, I was 4 miles off the Mexican border where I lived. I grew up with an 85% Hispanic. Great place to grow up, farming community, but there was no real life experiences down there. It was kind of like this isolated bubble. So I get a chance to come to Dallas. I say, absolutely, I'll come to Dallas. So I come to Dallas. I remember driving from South Dallas. I see the buildings. I'm in a pair of blue jeans, and I got my truck full of my junk. And I look up and I go, what am I doing? I mean, by myself, no instructions, no cell phones.
Right.
And I get here, and the next day he goes, okay, we're going to work. I go, going to work now? Tomorrow? He goes, tomorrow, 8 o'clock, let's go. So I go to work, and I'm looking around. I have no idea what I'm doing. He goes, okay, here's how you're going to study for your license. I'm going to have you sit next to investment brokers. You're going to talk to these guys. You're going to be calling millionaires. I'm like, I can't get $20 out of my parents. You want me to call some guy on the phone and ask him for 25 or 50,000? I don't even know what 25 grand looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
So I decided I'm going to have to be incredibly self-taught. And if you'd have listened to the way I talked when I first started, you would laugh so hard. I'd make the cable guy look intelligent, because I was so redneck South Texas. I'd be like, hi, this is Troy Eckard calling from Dallas, Texas. We want to talk to you about an oil and gas deal. My wife and I have videos, home videos when we had the kids. I'm like, man, I sounded like the most ignorant, uneducated guy you ever thought. And I thought to myself, if you want to be good at this job, you got to learn the product. So by the end of the summer, I made my first sale. And the way I made my first sale is I had a guy that said, if you got a great project, I'll give you a try. So I sent him the package, called him back, goes, I looked at it, I'm not interested. I go, okay, thanks for calling. I sat there for 30 minutes, thought, you know what? 3 days from now is my last day. That guy said it was a good deal. This is a great deal. I've done my homework. This is a good investment. So I call him back, and I'm pissed. And I'm going to rip this guy's head off. And he goes, whoa, settle down, settle down. I was already writing the check and going to send it in anyway. I decided to participate with you. But what would have happened is I would have quit. That check would have showed up. Somebody else would have picked up the account. I would not be in this career today.
Wow.
It was that close.
Wow.
But when I got that first commission check, it was like $1,250. You'd have thought it'd been $1,250,000. Because at $3 minimum wage, $2 minimum wage, how long would it take me to make $1,200? I go, that's how it works? Yeah, that's how it works. So I began to self-train myself on the product. I'd go to the field. I'd sit with the drilling engineers. I'd drive on the weekends in my own time. I'd go to the library. You didn't have internet back then. And I knew that my language, because of my upbringing, wasn't strong, my vernacular. So I took the Webster's Dictionary, 3 inches thick, and every day I'd take 20 to 50 words, and I'd pronounce them and understand the definition of that. Then I'd speak into the mirror, and I'd speak into the recorder every day. And by the time I was done after 2 or 3 years, I lost that country twang and that sound like you just had barbed wire for lunch, and changed it. And it changed. And so that's what I have today.
So you went all in on it. Once you taste that that shark tastes blood and water.
Yeah.
Like once you got that first commission check, it showed you what was possible. I think you also mentioned off camera prior, you told me a story about you actually found the top sales guy and the bottom sales guy.
Correct.
Can you share with the audience what you did there and what your intention was? I think they'll love that story.
Yeah, so on the way to work, I tell my stepbrother, I said, okay, you're gonna have me sit down with these different guys. I said, can you do me a favor? He goes, what's that? I said, can you tell me who the worst salesman is in your group? There's like 20. And who's your best? He goes, yeah, it's going to be this guy, Eb, who's the worst salesman, and this guy, Mark, who's the best salesman. I go, okay, don't tell me why. Let me just find out for myself. I'm really, really keen at looking at details. So I get there, and I go sit next to this guy, Eb, all day long. But we drive home that night because I'm staying in his house for the first month. He goes, what do you think? I said, well, I know why. He's terrible. He goes, why? I said, he wears a suit and tie. He has all the right parts. He looks the part. The guy's never on the phone. He never dials him. He never works. He spends more time trying to keep his car from getting repossessed. He has no intention on being here. He's looking for another job while he's sitting in your space. This guy has no intention on this being his career. You're wasting breath letting him in the front door. He goes, okay, thanks. So I go to work the next day. I sit next to Mark. Well, Mark was pretty simple. This guy was a quirky little dude, but he was the top salesman. So I said, hey, Mr. So-and-so, do you mind if I sit with you? He goes, 3 conditions. Don't ask me any questions when I'm down on the phone, right? Don't ever interrupt me while I'm in the middle of the working day. And don't ever ask me questions that don't have anything to do with the business. Don't ask me my personal questions, who my life is. It's none of your business. I'm not here to be your friend. Wow, okay, Mr. Rude, right? I get in there, and this guy puts a stack of cards. Back then it was paper. He had a stack of cards of 300 potential millionaires, and he is dialing like a machine. Boom, boom, boom. He just filling his trash can. So he says, I'm going to take a break. I said, well, let me ask you a question. What's the game plan? He goes, well, here's why all those guys out there are losers. He says, they're spending all day trying to find the buyer out of the 300 cards in a call. Because I'm trying to find the 299 broke people who don't qualify. So I win 299 times, they lose 299 times. I says, I finding the golden nugget is a blessing. They cry and whine every day when they don't find a qualified investor. For me, I want to go through and find 299 people who don't qualify and throw them in the trash. This is all kind of the mindset of how I built my business today. If you have a great opportunity, money is easy. Okay? If you have a lousy opportunity, you can never find money.
It's an uphill battle versus downhill, yeah.
So I've always said, why my career has been successful is, if you take the mindset, money is everywhere and easy to get. It's your job to find the right asset that attracts that money. And if you can't develop the skill or have the skill to have the right asset, you're never going to be successful, because you might sell the first deal on a hook and a crook and a BS. You're never going to sell it the second time. You're never going to get the second round of money. people are going to find out what you had was a defective product. Find the right product, you'll find all the money you ever want. And that's a fact of life.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
it's reverse psychology.
So you essentially started becoming successful because of that. You shadow them for a day. You see the contrast. You start learning, working on your vernacular, your sales skills, getting on the phones.
Yep.
And so what happens? How does your performance go? How'd you do month 1 in sales? Month 2?
Month 1, nothing. Month 2, nothing. 3 days before I quit, I make my first sale. The guy called back, sends a check in. Stepbrother walks in, lays $1,250 in cash on the table and says, don't worry about FICA. He says, I just want you to see what you just did by working the phones. I said, oh, great. Within about 90 days, I asked a question. I said, can I get in the office before 8 o'clock like everybody else? He goes, well, yeah. I said, I just want a key. I want to get in there and get my day going. What I was really doing was I was timing to be contrarian. I've always been a contrarian. So I said, if I owned a manufacturing business in Ohio and Florida, they're an hour ahead of Texas, but I'm going to get there at 6. I'm going to get my work done so my employees can hit the floor at 8. 8 o'clock there, 7 o'clock here.
Correct.
He's not taking my call. So I'm going to dial business owners at 6 o'clock Texas time, which is 7 o'clock their time. Secretary's not there, and they might have a little bandwidth for personal business if I catch them before the day starts.
Right.
So I start making calls, and I get one of my biggest clients who's got like 15 patents on the catalytic converter, and I call him at 6:15 in the morning. And this guy goes, son, where are you calling from? I go, I'm calling from Texas. He goes, what time is it in Texas? I go, 6:15 a.m., sir. He goes, why are you calling me so early in your time? I said, early bird catches the worm. You're not talking to me in 45 minutes. You're running your plant because I see you're a manufacturer. I'm calling you on your time so I don't waste you making money. I like your attitude. What do you got? I ended up investing a ton of money with me, and he had patent on 15 patents on the catalytic converter. So I would do the same thing at lunch. All the guys want to go to lunch at 11:30, come back at 1. I go, no. That's when their owners don't go to lunch. They stay there and work through it. I'm dialing owners on the time zone. So my time zone rotated from East Coast all the way to Hawaii until 9 o'clock at night. And everybody's like, how is Troy making so many sales? Well, I'm fishing when the fish bite. You're fishing when it's comfortable for you. So I do everything contrarian all the time.
Was it hard to do that while being married?
I wasn't married yet. We didn't get married until 1986. My wife and I, she moved up to Dallas. We got engaged. But even after we got married, we had one car in Dallas. We didn't have enough money yet. We were just starting my career. And so I said,
Where'd you guys meet?
We met, she actually went to high school with me, but I'd never talked to her because she was a couple years younger and I didn't date young girls.
Right.
And so I went to college, came back, fixing to hit a bar with a buddy. I look over and there's 4 girls in a truck. 3 of them we knew from high school. One was my wife now. I knew she was, but I'd never talked to her. And they were like, where are you guys going? Oh, we're headed to the bar. We're 18 years old. We're going to go hit the bar and dance and have a good time. They said, why don't you come to this party? We're like, we're not partying with high school kids. They said, no, it's got a combination of college, et cetera. I said, all right. We go over, hang for an hour, really like her, like talking to her. She says, I need a ride home. Me and my buddy give him a ride home. I said, hey, would you like to go to a movie sometime? Sure. Asked her out 2 days later. We've been together 40 years.
Wow.
So now we got 4 adult kids, 9 grandkids. I got 2 son-in-laws, got 1 daughter-in-law, and the youngest one is hopefully going to get married here soon in the next couple of years. We'll see. And
that's incredible.
Have a great story. But all that because of a red light. I said, fate is a red light. Had I run the red light like I normally do, or had you guys run the light, I said we never would have met. I said,
or all that for the male imperative at a red light.
That's correct. That's correct.
Because you could have not responded.
That is correct.
But
yeah.
I guess early bird gets the worm, right?
Well, that's why I say putzing. Opportunity sometimes can be exactly sitting right next to you. I used to have a lake house, and I would watch these guys in these $150,000 Ranger boats fly across the lake, double twin outboards, 150 horsepower, fly across the lake, and they'd be coming to my cove. I'm like, what are they doing? Well, I'm out there in the morning at 6 o'clock, and I'm taking my line. I'm chunking my line out as far as I can, reeling back, trying to catch a bass. They come right in, they throw right underneath my feet, and they catch like a 2 or 3 pound bass. What's the point of the story? Sometimes the best things you have are right underneath your feet.
Yep.
And so, we as investors, as entrepreneurs, as mentors, sometimes the answer is right in front of you, but we're so busy trying to prove that we're important and we're philosophically smarter and we want to say the fancy words, we forget sometimes the basics is the best answer. And so I try to stay super basic, super humble, and very much focused on the miniature details because that makes the difference between success and failure.
Yeah. The focus on a few things over time.
That's it.
Yeah. A lot of very high net worth individuals always tell us the same thing.
Hey guys, we'll get right back to this video in a sec, but first, I have a quick question for you. Given that the e-commerce industry is growing by the trillions year over year, have you ever dreamed of owning your own e-commerce business like many of the guests we've had on the show, but maybe you feel stuck on how to start? Well, if so, you're not alone. The truth is, starting and setting up your own online store can be incredibly time-consuming, complicated, and get expensive. Not to mention the hassle of researching top products and staying on top of market trends that make you money. Lucky for you, that's where today's sponsor, StoreBuild.ai, comes in. With StoreBuild.ai, you instantly get a free custom-built, AI-driven store loaded with 20 winning products and a custom theme that can help you generate sales. All you need to do is head to StoreBuild.ai, enter your info, then simply sign up to Shopify for free, choose your store's look and feel, and voila! They'll send you your custom-built store ready to generate sales. The whole process is lightning fast. Whether you're just starting out or want to grow, StoreBuild.ai makes launching an online store easier than ever. So why wait? Visit StoreBuild.ai and in less than 5 minutes, you could have the e-commerce business you've always dreamed of. Thanks to StoreBuild.ai for sponsoring this video. And now let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
Now switching gears a little bit, I want to go back to the story. So you start doing well. You know, you make that first commission check. Pretty soon you're working around the clock, top producer. Where do you go from that to going, maybe I want to start my own thing?
Well, my stepbrother was a nice guy. He couldn't find oil in a Jiffy Lube. And he had a tendency to have affairs with his secretary. So after about 2 years, I realized I can't work here. This is not a career. And it's about ethics. I talked to my dad about it. I said, Dad, I can't sell this product because I don't think the back office, what my brother is doing, is ever going to make anybody any money. And I said, I can't do it. I'm going to either go get a job in another industry or mow grass. I have a level of ethics and integrity. When that investor asked me how things are, I got to say, I wouldn't write a check to this place. And so I left after about 2.5 years. And so I kind of bounced around for about 11 months. I worked for a small guy that had a small project. I didn't think he had the right ethics either. So I was like, I'm at the end of my ropes. Well, I got a call from a former SEC attorney, and he said, look, I'm a private lawyer now. I used to be at the SEC. We've been looking for somebody to start a brokerage firm. Your name's come up multiple times with a great ability to raise money, super high ethics, and that's what we want. So I go down and I meet this old guy.
Out of the blue, that comes to you.
Yeah, I got a phone call out of the blue. I'd never met the guy before. He just, somebody gave my name.
But that speaks to the compounded effect of how, like, goodwill over time, even if in the moment didn't yield anything, it might yield something 1.5 years later to one person that opens a door to the $1 billion opportunity, but it's hidden in 100 little mini
it's like
living in
it's like the 7
actions.
connections of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah,
Right?
I heard
it
about
is.
that. Yeah.
It's true. I mean, you think about the connectivity, it's there. And what I was able to do was I built up a really, really good reputation the first 2 or 3 years of, I went far beyond just being an employee. I would create sales systems and protocols and call systems and lead generation. I worked at night and everybody's like, you're not even a manager, why are you doing that? I said, well, if I help you sell and I help the company raise money, the company can lower its cost, our clients get a better deal, I'm helping you make more money, we're pulling the wagon together. And like, you're just because your stepbrother. I said, no, it's because who I am. And so I carried that over, and when they contacted me about this brokerage firm, the guy that I met, I didn't like the guy. He was just, I mean, I left the meeting, I go, that is one arrogant SOB, that guy, I don't trust him. If I'm gonna raise money, it's gotta be for somebody I trust that I would write my own check to. So for about 2 weeks, it wasn't a job, and he was pissed off. I wouldn't take it. He was insulted I wouldn't take his job. And finally we came to an agreement. He said, okay, I'll let you have 51% of the brokerage firm. This is how we'll do it financially. Now, stud, let's see what you got. And so it took me, I started from scratch. I didn't have a secretary. I started this investment firm from zero ground at 26 years old. Within about 6 months, I had a secretary, I had a compliance person, I had 3 or 4 salesmen. It took me about 4 to 5 months to raise the capital on the first deal, which was only like $1.5 million. Because I'm running the business, I'm selling, I'm training.
And that's like 10 people at 100 grand a pop, or is it 4 people at 250?
It's 40 people at 25 grand a pop. It's back then, you know, in the 90s, if you got a guy write a check for 100 grand, that was a lot of money. The disparity from today to then was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sold a guy 100 grand, it was like high fives. It was like, that's a big, big sale.
Do you find, sidebar, do you find that you ever have clients, and obviously it's confidential, but have you ever had clients who, like on a swing, would be like put 10 million into something, or just on the fly like that? Or are all of them at high level super due diligence guys?
Well, I have a theory on that when it comes to rich people, right? So guys that have between, let's say, below 5 million, they're just glad to be in the club, right? Guys generally between 5 and 40 million, they think their shit doesn't stink. They think, you know, in Dallas, when you pull up to a red light today, there's 3 Mercedes at the light. Each one has a clock in the rearview mirror, and it's based on when they bought the Mercedes, because my Mercedes is 5 minutes newer than yours. Everybody wants to compete like it really matters, and I've learned over the years I could care less what your net worth is, because I don't share your net worth, and you're not going to adopt me, so I don't care. And I've messed around with guys that are worth $1 billion and guys that are worth barely $2 million. So when I think about capital and investors, it's really more about the people I'm with, the integrity. Who do I want to work for? See, I'm very clear. I work for my investors. I've asked you to invest me. I owe you a fiduciary duty and I owe you a ethical duty to do the very best job I can. I'm going to tell you bluntly what I charge. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. And I'm the most fierce warrior you're ever going to meet to protect your money. Why? I see those people the way I saw my mom and dad, even though they didn't have money. It's their life savings, it's their investment, it's their retirement, it's their kids' money, it's their grandparents' money, it's their inheritance. And it's not about buying a deal, it's about as a fiduciary, as a responsible professional, am I giving you the truth and transparency so I can protect your investment? And if it's a high-risk drilling, like an exploration well, I'm going to tell you up front, it's got a 7% chance of dry hole. But if it hits, it can make us 10 to 1. But you need to know you could lose all your money. I had a lawyer here in town that was going to buy in a little deal that I had. And I literally told my lawyer, I said, I'm putting at the top of my document, you can lose 100% of your money on the very first line. He goes, you're not going to sell a lot that way. I said, I don't care. I said, whoever's in, I want them to be able to know right up front it is what it is.
Did you do that because you got burned a time before and realized, I never want to put myself in a situation where I misrepresented something to a client? Or did you do that proactively to avoid that because of what you had seen?
I did it proactively to avoid it, but I also have been around the horn long enough to know there are just as many unethical investors as there is unethical sponsors. I've had a lot of clients invest in me that turned out to be felons that were chased down by Interpol, and they were basically laundering money. Had a guy that was in part of the mafia that bought into production to launder his money. Got a guy that was stealing money from his pension and got caught by the FBI. There's as many, a lot of unethical, illegal, crooked investors as there are sponsors. So for me in this particular venture, I had 90% of my money and I was asking a few partners to join me. And I said, I want to be very careful who I have in this because what I don't want to have is be caught off guard. Right. So I told my lawyer, you're putting it right up front. If you invest this, you can lose 100% of your money. So the lawyer here in Dallas, I showed it to him. He was a brother of one of my clients. He just started cracking up laughing. He goes, well, there's no reason for reading your suitability agreement, no reason reading your subdocs. You already told me I can lose all my money. After that, there's no disclosure necessary. If I sign it, then I'm well aware. I said, I have no recourse. And the guy loved it, right? Yeah. And I think that's kind of just the mentality I take in life and in business. You know, when I hire an employee, I go, look, you gave me a resume. I'm telling you the job description. We hope this is a long relationship. If you lied on your resume and we find out, you're probably not going to work here. If I can't deliver the quality of work, the work atmosphere you want, you're probably not going to stay. So what we got to do is be honest with each other because this is like a mini marriage. So what do you want to do? And I'm just blunt with people. I mean, I have Tourette's syndrome. I just say what's on my head. That's why I probably can never be a public company. But I think that is most refreshing. What I found in the last 2 or 3 years, the most refreshing thing my clients tell me all the time is, we just absolutely love your just blunt integrity and straight up. You just say it like it is. Yeah. You may offend a few people, but you know what? I'll take you offending me versus all the other nonsense and blue sky.
Political correctness, BS.
And the liars and all the investment liars.
So going back to add on to, you mentioned that you have a theory about investors under 5 million, 40 plus.
I get sidetracked. Yeah, so under 5 million, they're just glad to be in the game.
Right.
That 5 to maybe 40 million, they start thinking they're pretty special. Like, well, I gave you 200 grand. You should call me at midnight when I tell you to call me. Okay. The guys generally the guys over 40, 50 million in today's environment, they think they need a special deal. Like if I give you 10 million, well, then you should cut 20% off your cost and you should fly up here and shine my shoes on Saturday night. And well, I shouldn't pay the price everybody else. And I've had a couple of billionaires as clients. And the one billionaire I worked with never asked for a discount, but I never made any money off him. It was always bring me the deal at cost. You're using my name, my clout, my financials. So you're just we're side-by-side partners. I'm like, I'm just working for free. Why am I busting my butt bringing you a free deal? Love the guy to death, but I never made a single dime off him, right? The one I have now that's a billionaire, nicest guy in the world, he never asks about fees, never had costs. He just loves the business acumen that I bring. He loves the integrity. He loves the fight. He loves it. He goes, you were like I was 40 years ago. He said, and that's why I invest, because I know that my money's safe and you absolutely are going to do the very best job. And I don't think twice about when I give you money because it's hard to find that. That's why he's been a client for almost 20 years.
That's amazing. And then thinking back, I know when you mentioned you started the business, it didn't go so easy, right?
Oh man, no way.
So talk about what happens. What happens? I know there's a famous story of you going to drill and not being so successful the first
So I was raising for the money for the guy here in Dallas. So when I started the brokerage firm, he was doing the wells. We hit like 42 out of 44 wells.
Do you remember the first investor you sold for your business?
Yeah, a guy named Dr. Bruce Myers out of Rochester, Michigan. Still know him, still alive. He's like 72. And
was that one of the best days of your life at that time?
I liked him, and I still like him to this day. We haven't talked much in the last few years because he's been kind of off the radar. But I liked him because it was funny. The first time I called him and asked him to invest, his office manager said, well, the doctor's busy, he'll have to call you back. I said, well, look, let's not waste his time. Here's who I am, here's what I do, and here's why I'm calling. If he's interested, he can call me back on my number. Most people just leave their name and try to trick you. He called back and goes, well, the first thing is you made an A+ in the fact that you had enough guts to tell me who you were. You called about oil and gas, your name. He goes, most don't do that, so I appreciate that. He goes, but let me just tell you, I just had a bad investment last year in oil and gas, and I helped the feds put the guy in jail. So just be aware, I'm not messing around. It better be the real deal or don't waste your time. I said, well, I'll do better than that. If you'll fly down here, I'll pay for your airline ticket. I just started the business, but I'll be willing to front your ticket. And you fly down here, I'll take you out to the field, I'll show you what we're doing. If you're not happy, don't invest. You got a free ticket to Dallas, you saw some oil wells. If you're happy, then maybe you'll invest, we'll become partners. I didn't have the $800, but I knew I was gonna pay for it.
So at that time, you didn't have money?
I was beginning my career. It was only like the first 4 months in the business, right?
Right, yeah,
So
yeah.
I took a risk. I paid for the ticket, bought
Right.
the ticket, and when he flew down, went out to the field, had a great time with him. And he goes, all right, I like you. I like the way you're honest. I like the way you do business. He goes, I'll pay for my own ticket. I'm going to invest. He invested for 15, 20 years.
Wow.
Until things changed for him financially, and then he couldn't do it anymore, right? But
Yeah.
I still know he is. We talk on Facebook. He's 72. I knew him since he's 36. We've known each other 40 years.
And then so you raised that first pool of money. I think it was, you said almost $1 million or so.
Yeah.
And then how much did it cost at that time to actually start your first project or drill your first
So
project?
at that time, in the first 3 years, I owned the brokerage firm, and there was another guy that owned the oil company, and I funded all of his deals.
Right.
And then when we got down to the end, he put himself in financial stress. And at that point, he was doing unethical things that I recognized behind my clients' backs. And I had a real choice. I was making 7 figures a year as a 27-year-old. And I had a very successful broker firm, and I just built a brand new $1 million house. And I went home and told my wife, I said, we're at a crossroads. I said, I can't raise money with an unethical person. I think I've caught him stealing. I think he's doing unethical things. I'm gonna go tell the partners he's doing that, and it's over. I'm not raising money for him, man. We're done. And what I'm going to have to do is figure out how to part ways, do it amicably. I'm going to tell the partners what he's doing without making defamation.
Sure.
And I said, but I'm done. She's like, man, are you sure? I go, 100%. My name, my credit, my worthiness, my honor is worth more. So we parted ways. He took the clients, I took the clients. We didn't badmouth each other. 3 years later, he's almost in bankruptcy, and I started my first oil company in 1995. And so I thought, it can't be that hard to drill wells. Got to find the right oil company, geologist. I'll go drill wells. So I get these first 3 prospects lined up, and we drill them, and all first 3 were dry. I was like, man, are you kidding me?
For somebody that doesn't know what that means, what does that mean in layman's terms?
You go drill a well, you spend, $1.5 million on a $3 million well. You drill it straight down to 10,000 feet, 2 miles below the ground. They run the equivalent of an X-ray or an MRI, and they run this tool down with electronic radioactive material. It says it's water, it's gas, it's got porosity. You pull out the log and you go, that big 20-foot zone of oil and gas, turns out it's all salt water. It's not commercial. So you just lost $1.5 million. You don't complete the well, and you got to call all your clients and say, hey, that $1.5 million you gave me is gone. It's zero. I did that the first one, I did the second one, and I did the third one. And so I'm like, wow, I just went from 42 out of 45 successful.
So when you're swallowing each one of those, it's like clients' money. So
it's gone.
So, oh man.
Now, the good thing for me
Damn.
is
How do you stomach that? How do you stomach that?
Because I was an investor. So what made me stomach it is in 1991 or 92, I picked up a brand new partner. It turned out it was the former CFO of Pace Pecani Sauce. And then they sold out to Campbell's Soup for $1.2 billion in 1992 or 3. And Rod was a big guy, like 6'5", big old husky guy. And I went to San Antonio to visit him for the first time. And he looks at me across the desk and says, I know you're young. You probably don't have a lot of money, but I'm real simple. I only invest in what you invest. So if you want me to invest in these wells with you and that company you represent, then I need you to know you're going to invest the same terms in the same deal I'm in. I said, yeah, but I can't afford $50,000 to $100,000 per well like you're investing. He goes, no, but what can you afford? I said, I can do a half a position, $12,500 every month, and I'll keep increasing. I said, I want to invest, but I just haven't done it yet. He goes, you invest your little 12.5 and I'll put in 50, 100,000. You'll make enough commission to pay for yours pretty much over time, but I want to know you have skin in the game. So that's really how I started my career. I started putting my money in. So by the time I got to 1995 and the dry holes, I go, I'm sorry, I got 2 shoulders and none of them have a crying towel on it. You put in 25,000, I have 200,000 of my money in that same dry hole. So I got 10 times the experience you do. So don't cry on my shoulder. We all knew the risk. Now we're going to go drill another well. We're going to save the money from completing it, drill another well. You want to play or you don't want to play?
And at that point, I don't know if it's too private, but how much do you have, for example, raised when you're risking that 1.5 at that time, ballpark?
Well, we were doing them well by well back then. You didn't have what we have today, which is you didn't have a lot of runway.
Oh, so you did one and then had to re-raise more?
Every single time. You're doing one well, one package at a
So
time.
it's not like you had 10 million and then you can afford a couple.
I was doing
one.
capital raises, 20 a year, 1.5, 2, $1 million, 2 million, 2 million, 1 million, 2 million, 2, because they were all individually owned by that group of clients. Could be a different group of clients. There was no funding back then. There was no partnerships because the IRS said if you don't directly own it, you don't get a tax.
So you're in the trenches, man.
Every day, I'm like in the boxing ring, round by round, getting punched in the face.
And then so the third one, when it pulls up and there's no oil, what do you do that night? How did you learn to control discipline, emotion? What did you learn in that era?
I think I'm an eternal optimist. So when the well's dry, I learned this from a guy that I did business with in 1995, and he said, the perfect well you're ever going to drill, Troy, is this. Your geologist comes to you on Monday and tells you he has an idea where oil's found. Your landman comes and tells you it's available to lease. You hire a drilling contractor on Wednesday. He drills it on Thursday, and you suck all the oil out of it on Friday, and you plug it. That's the best well. He said, because nothing but bad news happens after that. Oil prices go down, the well collapses or something. So he said, what you're going to have to do is tackle your business in increments. I said, what does that mean? He goes, so the first decision you make when the geologist comes to you and says, I want to drill that well, you got to go spend money on seismic to drill it. That's your first investment. If you get the geology and seismic and it says the geologist is wrong, you lose that money. You walk away. You don't spend the next money to try to save it. So in the time when I drilled the 3 dry holes, to fast forward it, he says, when you log that well and it looks like it's not worthy of spending the next $1 million to set the pipe in the tanks, don't waste the other $1 million, write the first $1.5 million off, take the other $1 million and go drill a better prospect so you can make money. The idea is preservation of capital through prudent management, prudent decision making. He said, most people won't understand it. You're going to have to be the tough guy. You're like the Grim Reaper in the emergency room. You got to decide who lives and dies. You got to decide what's the best use of your money, your client's money. Some will like it, some won't. Some will disappear, never invest with you. But those who buy in and understand it will not only stay with you, but they'll be your best partners.
Yes, learn how to cut your losses, so to speak.
Cut your losses.
Yeah.
My dad and I raised horses even as broke as we were, and he'd say, you buy 3 at the auction, you train 3. 1 out of the 3 is not trainable, is kind of psychotic. You can't train it for a kid's horse. It's glue or it's dog food or it's something, but it's got to go. It doesn't eat another bite of grain. So I would raise horses with that mindset. So it was very easy for me to adapt that to oil and gas.
And then what happens when you drill your 4th one after the first 3?
Made a good well, made another good well. And then what I started, I'm really good about post-mortem. So whether it's business, relationships, marriage, kids, I'm real good about post-mortem. So on the first 3, each one, I hired an engineer or I hired a geologist, said, here's what the geologist said, the engineer said, they were wrong. What did they miss? Well, they did this wrong, they misinterpreted that, blah, blah, blah. And so I got really, really good at post-mortem analysis, but I did that when I owned my brokerage firm because from a compliance standpoint and making sure I was being the best brokerage firm I could, every well, good or bad, I created a due diligence package of analysis post, pre, and after.
SOPs.
Everything, because I wanted to know what I could do better, what I could do right. So I was teaching myself how to be a successful oil and gas guy. And I did that at the very beginning. So it was very easy for me to just keep doing it. I do it even now. Even here, 40 years later, I still do it on every project.
That's fascinating. And can you give the audience a little bit of context as to the level of clientele you have? Because it's thousands of multimillionaires, high net worth individual billionaires, I'm sure, over the years.
Yeah, I would say right now we have 2,700 accounts and we probably have 2,000 plus millionaires, and they've invested almost $900 plus million with us. And probably 500 of those are brand new in the last 12 months. So really, we've got about 1,400 clients who've done about $800 million in business with us.
What's the most common industries you see high net worth individuals make their wealth in?
Well, obviously doctors and dentists. We have a ton of doctors and dentists, but that's not really where the real money is. Doctors and dentists, the reason why they're good at investing, they have a lot of cash flow. You know, I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon, I make $2 million a year as a surgeon, I'm gonna make $2 million until I finally retire. A lot of people have a lot of wealth in assets. So one of my richest clients in California, guy's worth $100 million back in 1992. And I go out.
Did he sell a company, have an exit?
Nah, he just had assets. He was just a smart guy.
Wow.
I love all the success stories from all my previous clients. They made money in so many crazy ways, which inspired me to be a putzer. Their stories made me the putzer.
What's like one of the most fascinating stories? You know, obviously you can keep it private who it is, but what's one of the most fascinating stories of somebody who sort of finagled themselves into wealth?
The guy I'm fixing to tell you was my model of being a absolute putzer. So I go out there. This guy's investing $200,000 per well without blinking, never even looking for additional money. Just like every 2 weeks, 200,000 like clockwork. I'm like, this guy is made of money. What is the deal? So I fly out there and I meet him and spend a couple of days with him. And we're sitting there talking about in his office. Love the guy. He's like 80 years old. I said, do you mind if I ask you how you made your money? He goes, you got time? I said, that's why I came out here. I got plenty of time. He goes, by the way, you're one of the first guys and probably the only guy that's ever flown out here to meet me. Everybody else doesn't take the time. I go, I want to know what made you money, how you were successful, because I want to learn from you. I want to know how I can manage your money better. So he starts telling me the story. And he says, well, I used to be an accountant and CPA. And a lot of times I would do accounting work for people and they didn't have the money to pay their bill. So they'd trade me land. So he said, I had this one client who had like a $10,000 or $15,000 accounting bill. I did a full audit for him, everything else. He goes, man, I just don't have the cash to pay. He goes, but I got this piece of property over here outside of LA. And do you mind if I gave you that property exchange for the $12,000? George goes, it's kind of on the side of the hill. It doesn't look like it's worth much money. All right, I'll trade you. So George takes the property. Well, this is like in the 1950s. All of a sudden, about 10 years later, the highway department comes and says, we want to take and mine all the gravel off your hill to make the highway. And so he made like $4 million selling gravel off this huge hill that was worthless. And so he makes like $4 million. Well, it gets better.
No way.
California's loaded with oil and gas. So all these guys want to drill wells because the surface was all these mountains and hills and rough terrain.
No way.
But they needed a flat spot. Well, the highway department just made a nice flat spot. And he owned the mineral. So they said, well, the first place we're going to drill, we're going to put all the wells in pad site. We're going to pay you for surface damages. You got mineral rights you own. So this guy made himself rich off that one location. One location.
No way.
I can probably give you 20 stories like that. It's the putzer. So my son-in-laws, my family, like, Dad, why are you talking to a plastic company? Why are you going?
It's almost wandering and being open to hover and expect magic, and it shows up.
Well, let's face it. If you and I got in the car and drove North Dallas, I bet you within a margin of 5% error, you and I could figure out what the most valuable pieces of property are in the next 10 miles. Why? Because it's obvious, right? What we don't know is the property that has all the trees and the trash bin in front of it and the homeless encampment in front of it really is the best deal. Nobody wants to buy it because it has all this scar tissue. Once you get past it, you go, well, that property is being sold for half cost. See, I love to buy real estate, but I always make a lot of money in my real estate because I buy the ugly and I buy the contrarian. I bought a house in Colorado about 4 years ago. I knew the guy was leaving $1.5 million equity in the table. He had no idea what he had. Did my research. The house is up 3 times in value in 5 years. Everybody's like, how do you do that? I said, because you got to do your homework. You got to putt. You got to go look at 50 houses to find the one that's the good deal.
I love that the other day when we were with you, you said something cool. You said, dude, you get so good at it that you were like, dude, driving home back and forth, I can make $2.5 million flipping houses just from seeing opportunities on the drive back and forth.
I'm looking at a project right now. I think I can buy it for $8.5 million. I think I can make $40 million on it in the next 3 years. I'm looking at it right now. Since I met you a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now.
That's fascinating.
And that's the problem about being a serial entrepreneur. You could do 1,000 things, and as you get older, I'm 60 now, you get older, you start saying, it's not about doing all the things, it's doing about things that have meaning to it. So one of the things that's really helped me build my business lately is that instead of being a deal junkie, my old billionaire client, he and I were very much alike. He was a deal junkie. He goes, I said, why do you like me so much? He goes, you're just like me. You like oil, you like real estate, and you're a deal junkie. I go, is that a good thing or a bad thing? He goes, it's a good thing, but it's also an addiction. He goes, what you've got to learn is stop being addicted and you got to be more selective. Great advice 10 years ago. So I basically started being real selective about 8 years ago. And so my favorite thing is no thank you. Hey, Troy, we got this new hotel we're building. Would you like to be an investor? No thank you. Would you like to do that? No thank you. Would you like to buy? No thank you. What happened to you, man? You turn old on us or what? I go, no. I realized I spent 30 years being really good at investments and due diligence and learning to run a business. And I went out and tried, I threw my money out in the field and said, let me try everything. When I get all back down to it, it's the one thing I started with. It's oil and gas. It's understanding credit investors. It's using private capital. It's learning how to deal with people. It's understanding how to process things. It's learning how to use integrity and intelligence. It's using all that to make yourself money, and you don't have to do all those other things.
And what's the minimum investment for people to invest with you? And do you guys work only with accredited investors?
Yeah, we only work with accredited investors. I don't think many people are non-accredited should be in oil and gas. I just don't. You don't have enough money to really create a portfolio. We say on each one of our individual projects is probably anywhere from a $25,000 minimum up to $250,000 minimum, depending on the size. But we really tell people, look, if you can't put in $500,000 in the next 12 to 24 months, you really shouldn't invest with us. I can't build you a brick home when you can afford one brick. Right? Now, we have some clients who do every single project. They're in 40, 50, 60 portfolios. They got $1 million, but they wanted to spread it. That's fine. We have some guys that come in and drop $5 million, do one deal, and never do another investment again. And you're like, well, you didn't really follow instructions. I mean, I hope that was the one that gets you the yield you want because you are completely avoiding what we are telling you as best practices. So investors are crazy. I mean, they all think they're smarter than you. I mean, I throw investors out of meetings. People ask stupid questions. I'm notorious for somebody will ask a question. I go, that's a stupid question, so I'm not going to answer. But anyway, you know, are you here to invest? Are you here to try to make me look stupid, or do you want to make yourself look smart? My clients, I think, generally speaking, 95% just love that part about me, because it's like, we all want to tell him that was a stupid question. We're just glad you did it.
What's the most common denominator you find, or what are some of the few common denominators you find among some of the most successful or affluent people that not just make wealth but keep it? Because I'm sure over the years you've gotten to witness the behind the scenes, so to speak, of people maybe making it, getting it, keeping it, losing it. I'm sure there's been common denominators of the people that lose it, and common denominators of people who grow it, multiply it, sustain it, etc. It's just high level. What can you share?
I think the one thing I can say about the people who were able to maintain the wealth. See, I always was told, and it's true, really good client said to me, Troy, you're a really smart young man. You're really good at what you do. You're going to make a lot of money in your first 25 years of your career. And you're going to buy planes, trains, girlfriends, cars, boats, and vacations and toys, and you're going to spend 90% of your money. You'll make all your wealth after you're 55 years old, which has been true. And I said, why is that? He said, because when you're young, you think you're invincible. And the million you made, you think you can make it back next year, which I did. I'd spend $1 million to hit a dry hole and make it back. So you don't have respect for money. So I would say the clients, the wealthy people that I've run across that maintain their wealth, they have a certain degree of doubt. They doubt you're telling the truth. They doubt the documents are correct. So they've been burned enough. They keep that right of, you seem like a really good guy, but I got about a 5% doubt factor. So their alarm's up. That's number one. Number two, they never bet the house.
Right.
Never. These younger investors, they're swinging. I'm talking sub 45, like I put 4 million here and 2 million there and 1 million there. I go, what's your net worth? 8 million. You got 7 million in 3 deals? Yeah, but they're all home runs. Ponzi scheme, failure. And I'm like, what do you do now? I got to work 20 years to make back the $7 million. Like, why would you do that? I don't know.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of stories.
Oh
like that.
my God, it's off the chart. It is unbelievable the amount of scamming and lies and crooks and Ponzi schemes. So back to who makes it and who doesn't, here's the second component. The investors who are engaged keep their wealth. So we offer field trips, annual conferences. I educate like off the chart. I mean, I'm just constantly providing data.
And I know your investors have Eckard Insights as well, which is an app in real time. They can see their investments and monitor it. Yeah.
And we can see who goes on it. So we'll get a call from an investor and they go, I don't understand this or that. I go, yeah, I noticed you haven't been on the app in a year. So we spent millions of dollars. Every day it's uploaded. Everything you want to ask us is on the app. We show you haven't logged in 9 months. But you want to call me and ask all these questions. See, that's like a baby sitting next to a baby bottle and you don't want to pick it up and take a drink. I'm not going to, why don't you go on the app? I'll walk you through it. I'll educate you. But why do I want to spend 2 hours of my time when you're so disinterested, you won't even look at your own $1 million investment by using an app that was created for you? See, that's what I mean by disengaged. So what you have is you have these really busy guys making $1 million, $2 million a year. I'm a doctor, I'm a dentist, I'm a rancher, I'm a farmer, I'm a lawyer, I'm a CPA. I don't have time for all that, okay? But when you don't have time for that, that's when the fox gets in the hen house. Because all those promoters and liars and crooks count on you being busy. So they drop into that Texas twang, and I'm such a good guy, and God bless you, and I got a Pisces on my car, and I'm a family man, and I go to church every day. The fact you told me you went to church, the fact you told me you're Christian tells me you're probably a crook. If I don't see it in you, you don't have it. And so my favorite clients are those that are fairly easygoing. They don't get wound too tight. They're slow to pace. You say, hey, I'm selling out of this deal. You know what? I want you to. I want you to be successful. You go sell that last bit of interest to all your other clients because I don't want to be greedy. You call me back in the next one. You're like, okay, that's weird. And why is he saying it? Greedy hogs get slaughtered. And so I think the clients who maintain their wealth are those that are engaged, they're patient, they want to learn, they're thoughtful, they're me, they're putzers. They want to know everything, not because they want to be a know-it-all. They just they never stop learning.
And they want to know it all before they pull triggers.
No.
Yeah.
No, they get in. They'll get in.
Yeah.
But once they're in, they kind of, millionaires are funny. They'll give you $200,000 or $300,000 just to test the water.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got guys that put in $50,000 or $100,000. And I thought, well, this is kind of a small fry. And project comes along, goes, okay, I'll take $3 million on that. I go, I thought you didn't have much money. Oh, I just wanted to test the water. and I like that because they're not braggadocious.
Right.
They don't pull up in a Ferrari. They're not flying on the private jet. They're really humble, genuine people. It's the ones who act really cocky, the ones that are going to be your problem. The ones who are really like, I'm somebody special, and they're married and they got that big boob blonde wife, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a problem, right?
Yeah,
I almost 30
years younger. Yeah.
I don't ever judge anybody. You do what you want to do, but I look at it this way. I bet I have fired 30 or 40 clients in the last 24 months. Just said, you're not for us. Let me buy you out. Why is that? You don't respect us. You don't appreciate it. You don't come. You don't educate. You don't use the app. This is you're gonna make my life miserable because you're too lazy to learn and you think you're the smartest guy in the room, and you're not. I love telling people who go, well, I'm worth $15 million. I'm sorry, maybe you should get a second job. To me, I have fun because I'm like, I know what my net worth is. I know what most of my clients' net worth is. Do you think 15 million is going to impress us? It doesn't. And the fact you told me you have 15 million means you're an arrogant SOB. And here's the thing.
And it's probably not even 15 million.
Oh, it's not. Omar, here's what really makes the difference for me in business. I really take pride in working for my investors. And so I get to get up every morning and go, do I want to work for that guy? I don't. He's a jerk. He's rude to my staff. He's ungrateful. I don't want to make him. In fact, I want to find a dry hole and put you in it. So I tell the partners, one of the big deals for me is I call all my investors partners. And they go, am I in a partnership? Am I in an LLC? I said, no, you're not that kind of partner. You're a partner because I'm going to tell you everything. You're a partner because I'm going to ask you, what do you think and how are we doing? What can we do better? It's a relationship where I'm one part of the partnership. I provide the product, the office, the services, the skills. You're my bank. If I do a great job, my bank's going to lend me more money. If I do a lousy job, I'm going to go broke and the bank's going to foreclose on my house. So you're a partner. And as a result of that, I've got to want to make you money. I've got to want to be successful. And if I can't do that, you should go do something else.
Hey guys, quick question. Have you been enjoying this video, but you're thinking to yourself, man, I love this content, but I want to learn how to grow my brand or my business? Well, if your answer is yes, you're not alone. In fact, millions of entrepreneurs deal with this exact same issue. And it's something that I've learned the answer to from interviewing 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs around the world. And this philosophy that solves all that is a concept called who, not how. Now, the who, not how philosophy states that anytime you're stuck on the hows to get to the next level in your life, your brand, or your business, that there's always a who to help you get there. And it's for this exact reason that I'm super excited to announce that I've officially launched our brand new Passionate Few community to help you do exactly that. And yes, it's 100% free. Join me and the thousands of other entrepreneurs that can help you make your life, your business, and your dreams a reality. With no further ado, let's get back to the video.
What about the self-made entrepreneurs? What do you notice about them, the guys that are self-made?
Well, I think all my guys are self-made. I don't really have anybody that's inherited money.
Yeah.
And I include doctors and dentists. I mean, you spent 12 years in medical school.
Oh my God, yeah.
The dental schools, how hard it is to get. I'd say all my guys. I don't think I have maybe 1 or 2 clients who inherited the money, but the one guy that inherited the money is my best client. His dad left him a ton of money, but he's the nicest guy. He's always been a great partner. He's so grateful and thoughtful. He's engaged. He listens to every single education. He's the rare example. I'll tell you something interesting you're going to find out for all your listeners. You ready? All the millionaires I have over the years, probably several thousand, maybe 3 or 4 of their kids stayed investing with me.
Wow.
When they say you lose your wealth in 3 generations, I can tell you exactly why. I'll have a client for 15 years, have no idea he's got a daughter or son, known him for 15 years. He dies, 60 days later I get a phone call. Hey, this is Johnny Jr. My dad's been investing with you for the last 10 years and I want to know where the money is and what the account is. And they get real rude on the phone. They're like I go, hey, time out, Tiger. First off, it's a privacy act. You got to send me the document showing me you're the heir, you have permission. But more importantly is, I know your dad for 15 years. He never mentioned your name one time. You must have been so special to your dad, he didn't even bring you up in public. He didn't even tell a guy he's known for 15 years he even had a son. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to give me the paperwork and tell me you have the right to that, because most likely you're not in the will. That's why I haven't heard your name, and most likely you're digging around for money and you're not going to get it. So when you send me the paperwork, Johnny Jr., you call me back. And I actually told one guy who was super rude in Los Angeles, I said, you know what happens in 3 hours and 20 minutes? And he said, what's that? I said, I'm going to be on a plane and get off, and I'm going to beat your ass if you ever talk to me or my staff that way again. He goes, you can't talk to me. I said, you called me after 15 years, and I don't know who you are, and you start making comments the way you do. I said, let me tell you something. Life's about integrity and your word. I have no idea who you are, and I knew your dad for 15 years. Don't ever talk to me that way again. Never heard from the guy. He obviously wasn't in the will.
Yeah.
But the key point I was making in that little summary is,
yeah,
all these guys make all this money. I have learned from them what I don't want to do. They don't have great relationships with their spouse, a lot of them. They don't have great relationship with their kids. they don't teach their kids anything. They don't bring their kids to learn their business.
Financial literacy.
They don't even know their parents' own business. When their parents die, they go, yeah, he owned a manufacturing shop. What do y'all manufacture? I don't know. He makes barrels, but I don't know what to do with them. I got to hurry up and sell this thing. I don't even know what. I'm like, God, you're 40 years old and you don't know how to inherit the money. So I've looked at my clients and I looked at how miserable they've been and how millionaires are lonely, really, really lonely people because everybody wants to get money from them.
Right.
Their family doesn't like them. Their wives don't like them. Their kids don't like them. I'm like, man, that will not be me. I said, I'm going to have a great relationship with my family, my kids. I'm going to keep us all humble. Every day I'm going to remind us that we started from bootstrap. We started from the ground up. Every single one of us, every single day are going to be thoughtful and grateful for what we have. And we're going to work our tail off for these investors because they deserve it.
I love that you talk about humility too, because I know several years ago, especially past the '08 crash, you lost everything.
Yeah.
And you had to rebuild. Can you give the audience a little bit of context as to just how bad things got? Because you were already a multimillionaire, successful.
I was going to retire
had a house.
in 08.
How old were you at that time, if you don't mind me asking?
46, 47.
So you're 46, 47, already successful, multimillionaire. You got the house, the boat, the houses,
boats, toys, everything.
And you go from that to losing everything.
Pretty much lost about 90% of my net worth in about 8 months.
So can you talk to the audience a little bit about that experience, just to give them context?
Yeah, I tell you, and I say this now because it's kind of my mantra the last 15 years, you got to work like you're broke. And what I did is I worked like a guy who had reached the top of the mountain and I thought I was safe. And so I diversified, like everybody says. I had real estate, I had businesses, I had water rights, I had oil. I was doing real estate developments.
What was your net worth at that time, give or take?
About 20 million.
Okay.
I thought, right? You always think what you're worth until somebody strips you down. And I had a bunch of oil and gas wells and reserves, so I was making a ton of cash flow. So I'm like, I'm 45, houses paid for, I'm in great shape. Maybe I'll think about retiring early and because my biological father, which I never met, died at 55 of a heart attack. So I had this ticker at 55, I'm gonna drop dead. So I was like, I gotta take some time. But when the crash happened in 08, my wife's joke was, I used to joke, I said, look, babe, if oil and gas doesn't work out, I can set up a car dealership, I can mow grass, I can do all that. Well, what happened in 08? Car dealerships went bankrupt, General Motors went bankrupt, their bonds were no good. It was a 10-year drought, you couldn't mow grass, everything was dead. I guess God's sending me a message. I said, everything I thought I could do, I can't do. And the banks I had, 3 of the 5 banks that I was invested with, they got taken down by the financial crisis. So when the trustees of the bank took over, they said, all your loans are due, Troy. I'm like, how can my loans be due? I've never missed a payment. I have plenty of equity. They go, yeah, but unfortunately, you broke covenants. I'm like, what is a covenant? I mean, I gave you equity. My money's, I've never missed a payment. Oh, covenant means that we qualified you on the loan based on your income. Well, since oil dropped from 145 to 35, you don't have the same income. You're at a default in your income. So we want you to put down another 30, 40% equity. We need it in 30 days. We're going to foreclose on your property. So I went from my revenue dropping from 145 to 35. So my revenue was down 80%. Investors were getting crushed. I had probably 20 clients living with $3 million in unpaid bills. Said, sorry, Troy, we like you, but we can't pay our bills. So I had $3 million. And it was just every day I picked the phone up, it was like somebody was giving me bad news. And I got to the point where it about put me in the hospital from depression. So I went from 38 employees down to 4. I was doing the job probably 10 to 20 people. I got really good at being strong because you had no other choice. But man, I was a mess. I didn't know if I was going to make it through it.
And you had to tell your kids and tell everyone, huh?
I call my kids into our playroom and I said, oldest daughter was in college, and I said, I got bad news, but maybe not so bad. I said, the bad news is, I think we're going to file bankruptcy. I don't think we're going to make it through this. Here's what happened to the economy. Here's what happened. I'm very open with my kids. I said, but the good news is, it hasn't happened yet, and we can still make it. But I said, I don't know if I can pull this out. I'm by myself. I'm down to 4 employees. My kids rallied like never. Any father, mother was off the chart. I mean, it gives me goosebumps today saying that. At halftime, it brings me to tears. But first thing my oldest daughter said is, Dad, I'm moving home. You can sell my car. You can have my college fund. I'll drop out and I'll come work for the company and help you out. My second oldest daughter said, Dad, take my car and sell it. My wife says, take me out of my Jag. I'll drive the girls' car. We sold all of our cars. We rearranged everything. We sold the houses off. They were paid for. We got all the cash, paid all of our bills. We picked up everything out of San Antonio. We moved to Dallas in the middle of my second daughter's senior year. She's high school stud on the basketball team. My son's athlete of the year as a freshman. Second freshman in the history of the school to play varsity ball. I said, I'm sorry to disrupt you. We got to go. And it's funny when you go through that because you really find out what people think. And all these people that you thought that liked you because you were the big donor to the charity and you ran the soccer club of 1,000 kids and you had all this business, when you start falling down, people don't pull themselves up the ladder, they drag you down the ladder. And so my daughter was at lunch one day, and these guys were talking about, hey, did you hear that guy Eckard? He's going broke. He's going to go bankrupt. He's like selling all of his property. Like, good, get his butt out of town. Well, that's just jealousy, right? But you start looking at everything you thought you were made of, thought who you were, you thought what the public saw you as.
Your identity as a man, confidence,
everything.
Ego.
And you walk away going, I just spent 13 years for zero, for nothing. And everything I worked for 13 years is gone. So
And what was it that put you in that situation? Was it real estate? Was it?
It all happened at one time. So my partner at that time was a billionaire. It was Red McCombs of the McCombs family in San Antonio.
Were you liquid, or did you have too many investments out?
I had liquid. I had all my cash flow from my wells. But when oil dropped from 149 down to $32 a barrel, right?
The value of
the
it.
value.
Right.
And the cash flow dropped. If I was making 300 grand a month, now I'm making 80 grand a month, right? Then I found that a lot of my clients couldn't pay the bills. Hey, Troy, we were going to drill the wells, and I'm not drilling. I'm not going to pay you the $3 million. Well, I got contracts. I got to pay it.
Oh man! And you're used to a certain lifestyle and business and operation.
Everything. I had real estate projects, and the banks were calling me saying, "You're in default on that real estate. You're in default on this one. That $2 million, you owe us another 500 grand by the end of the month, or we're going to foreclose your property." Like,
so you go from just cruising on millions and things working to a completely different world. How did that affect you mentally, personally? How did it affect the
It
marriage?
almost drove me to massive depression. I mean, I got to the point after about 9 months. One of my very good lawyer friends, I'm talking to him. I said, "Look, I want to do the right thing. If I can't make it, I want to make sure my finances. I want to protect the clients. Who would be the trustee if I do fold up?" I spent hours with my lawyers making sure I was doing the right thing ethically and honestly. And I got to the point I was in such bad shape, and I didn't know it. My wife didn't even know it. I'm talking to one of my lawyers on the phone. He goes, "I don't want you going anywhere. I'm going to get you set up with my doctor." I go, "For what?" He goes, "You're in bad shape. You're in manic depression right now. I can tell by the way you're talking." He says, you worry me. You're up at 2 or 3 in the morning. You're working 23 hours a day." He goes, "I know that because I had depression 10 years ago when my brother dropped dead of a heart attack, and it just put me in depression. So I want to get you a doctor." "Nah, I don't need that doctor. I'm a tough guy." He goes, "No, you're either going to do it or I'm going to come pick you up." And so he got me an appointment with his doctor. I go down and meet his doctor, and his doctor looks at me and goes, "Cancel the rest of my appointments. I'm going to spend some time with Troy." And he goes, "I'm about to put you in the hospital." He says, "You're in bad shape." I'd lost like 25 pounds. I wasn't eating. I was working 2 and 3 in the morning, but I was not going to let the ship go down. I wasn't going to let my clients down. I wasn't going to let my family down.
You were going to go down swinging.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to swing until there wasn't left and left. So he got me a little bit of antidepressants. It felt like coming out of a cloud, and that's why I think I'm really empathetic with people with depression, because it's real.
Yeah.
And I'm a super tough guy, I think. And to say I have depression was like, man, that's a side with that. You can't label me with that. But I was. I had no serotonin left. I was done.
Yeah.
And so I then got on depression for about the first week, and I go, man, I feel like I woke up out of a cloud. Now I can think. Now I'm clear.
What meds was it? Do you remember?
I don't even know what it was. Just the lowest dose of some kind of antidepressant. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But it's like waking up out of a cloud. And I'm like, okay, where the heck have I been, and what's going on? Now I can think. So I created the game plan, sold out my real estate. I fired the real estate agent, sold my real estate myself, no commission. I sold it for prices higher than my listing agreement in the middle of the downturn.
Yeah.
Fired her, did it myself. Packed up my entire house, my business, sold my 4 houses, packed up, moved to Dallas, officed in a back office with a friend for almost a year. Totally humiliating, humbling, going from your own building, your own office. Now I'm by myself in a back office, having to ask permission to get coffee, and no secretary, managing clients, driving 120 miles a day round trip from where I was living in my sister-in-law's apartment, traveling my kids to the school district I wanted them to live in, going to work, picking them back up and going back to the house every day, 120 miles round trip. And finally I had to buy a house, couldn't qualify because the company was me. So they said, "We know you qualify, your credit's good, but here's your company. It has all these assets and debt, so you don't qualify. You're not making any money." I went about 5 years without taking a paycheck. I lived off my assets.
You went from being worth $20 million to needing permission for coffee and paying basic stuff, not even getting approved for. Oh man!
Couldn't get approved for a loan.
Talk about humility. And then, so what did you guys do? Move into an apartment?
We ended up finding a house. Super nice guy. He had just cashed out with a big tech company. I went and looked at the house. Said, "Look, here's the deal. I got my house for sale. I can't buy that till this gets sold. I don't know if I'm going to qualify." The guy goes, "Don't worry about it. I'll own or finance for you. You seem like a nice family. I listen to your story. I love your kids. I'll just own or finance it for you. And when your other house sells, you can pay me the equity and I'll carry the note for you." And then literally this guy, I mean, it's like God was working at every step of the way. God did it. I didn't do it. God did. I know people say don't bring religion, but I'm telling you, there was no way possible to happen.
Yeah, so at every dead end, it's
every
almost
dead
like
end,
God gave you an anomaly of a situation that kind of.
I'm going to share this with you because you're going to find. Okay, so I've got a bank note, and it's about it's like a $340,000 note, and the banker says you've got to pay that in 30 days, or we're going to have to start taking back assets. And I go, I can't make that payment, so you might as well come with another plan. I get a call from a buddy of mine who I drilled a well with about 2 years earlier, and the well didn't work out, and so we hadn't quite plugged it yet. It was sitting there, wasn't completed. We hadn't plugged it yet. And so he calls me on the phone. I go, great. What he means is he's calling me to pay my share of the plugging cost. I own like 52% of the well. He owns 48. I'm like, God, this is gonna be a horrible call. Another piece of bad news. He goes, hey, Troy, this is so-and-so. I said, hey, what's going on? He goes, I want to talk to you about that well. I go, yeah, I know. What's going on with it? He goes, well, I got great news. I go, what's the great news? He goes, well, there's a company that looked at that well. They think we should have completed the well, and it's a really good well. And they want to buy our dry hole for like $750,000. I go, they want to buy our dry hole? He goes, yeah, they think it's going to work. So they've already put the paperwork in, and they're going to bank wire Friday. Your share of that's going to be like $400 and something thousand, almost exactly what I owed at the bank. I go, you're shitting me. They want to buy our dry hole. They're paying me that money. They want to bank by Friday, and it's done. I go, I signed. Wire comes and I pay the bank. Now, it was bad because the bank goes, he does have money, and he's not giving it to us. I go, no. Yeah. I sold a dry hole in the middle of all this with no chance. A guy who has never met me before, owner finances his house because he likes my family and decides that we're nice people. Yeah. So as soon as I find the house to put it for owner financing, I get a call from the agent and said, you remember that family that looked at your house about 6 months ago that couldn't move? I go, yeah. Their house went under contract in Colorado. As is, whereas they want to close on your house cash if you'll get out in 2 weeks. I said, I will go home and throw stuff on the lawn and burn it. I'll be out of my house. So my house closed, I had the cash, closed this guy, and that's how I got back on my feet, one step at a time, one brick at a time.
Wow, God's grace, man.
Yeah,
incredible, man. Incredible. And what did you learn coming out of that? You talked about this concept of, I believe one time you told me you had a friend who, he said that sometimes it's like aluminum or steel, you have to burn it.
Yeah, my good buddy who died about a year ago, we played football since 7th grade. He was a big guy, and he had cancer for about 13 years. He's a tough dude because I would have never been through what he did. But he found out from my wife, he was married to my wife's best friend. He found out from her how bad a shape I was. Man, he's in really bad shape. And
this is in the midst of your depression.
This is in the middle of the 2009, shit's in the fan. There's no answers, no solution. I'm just getting pounded with a 2x4 every 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And so my wife tells his wife, says, yeah, well, how's Troy doing? Well, he's doing good. Business we're not going to make it. We may end up filing bankruptcy. Troy's in bad shape. He's skinny. He won't eat. He won't listen. He's working 20 hours a day. Mm-hmm. You know how he is. He's never going to stop. And so they drive in on a Saturday morning, and I'm getting up out of bed. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. It's like 6:30. I walk in, the door rings, and it's Dennis and his wife. And I go, what are you doing here, dude? I mean, they live like 3 hours away. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I came to talk to you, man. We're brothers. We've been together as best friends. And he said, I want to talk to you. So okay, let's talk. And I have no fight in me. I'm just like a whipped dog. I'm exhausted. And so he starts going through this whole thing, and he says, look, you don't think when I found out I had stage 4 cancer in my kidney, I wanted to just give up and just go die? I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years, chemo and treatment. And he said, and every day it's never good news. You don't go from terminal cancer to sudden cure. It's reality. You just try to see how long you can last. He goes, you've lost money. You've lost things. He goes, let me tell you something. The strongest metal in the world is steel. Do you know why, Troy? I go, no. He was like a PhD. He was always a smart guy. I was the dumb shit. And he goes, no steel. I go, yeah, Dennis, why? He goes, because steel has to be heated up to like 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. And what it's doing is burning out all the impurities. And when those impurities leave, those steel molecules bond, and that's why it's so strong. That's all God did. You were so focused on Eckard and your name and your wealth and retiring, and you gave no attention to God. And God was jealous. He didn't punish you. He just said, hey, I'm jealous, man. You haven't called me lately. Let me take all those play toys away, and maybe you'll focus on me. And so what was really cool about that is, I remember that. And he said a bunch of other great things. And somebody, I can't remember who it was, gave me this little knuckle cross. And it's a wooden cross that fits between your fingers. The cross goes this way. And you can carry it with you. And I carry that cross everywhere with me because every time something came up, I would sit there and pray. Well, what do you do when you get nervous or mad? You're like, God, man, please, let's get this thing done. So it was a perfect cross. So to fast forward in his memory and to fast forward what I went through, I had 10,000 of those crosses made about a year ago. And I give them to churches. I pass them out to homeless people in the street. Everybody that I stop at the street that wants money, I say, here's $100, but here's also a cross. Here's what it means. And I have printed on there, God is my strength, GIMS. And so my quiet way without promoting religion is, I want you to have a cross, whether you believe in God or not. Just take this and hang on to it and don't let go. When you're really, really struggling, there's something better and far greater than just what we're here to have on earth. It's God. And I said, he'll get you through it because he got me through every single way. There was no way I could have done this without God. It's just every single time something came up, it's like, here's some money for a dry hole. I'm like, whoa. Mm-hmm. It changed my whole life, which is part of why I stopped drinking, part of why I changed my life, part of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
What advice would you have to men or women, and by the way, thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. what advice do you have for men or women who might be in their own sort of dry hole, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Or in their own place in life where maybe they're listening to this at any age, right? Whether they're an investor, entrepreneur, whatever it is, and maybe they're looking for that next level, but maybe they feel stuck. Maybe they feel like they're in the portion of their life where, you know, it's kind of like a lot of us, right? Like you hit a plateau and you want more, but you just don't know where to go. You don't know who to ask about where to go. And so you have all this umph to want to take your life to the next level, take your business to the next level, but you feel stuck. What advice would you give for people on sort of how to get unstuck in their life to get
Yeah, I
to
think
the
you and I
next level?
talked about the other day off camera. What I said is that what I tell people from now on, and this really is important, it's kind of like my move from San Antonio. You know, I had to basically say, this is a new life. Everything we've known before is gone. We're going across the mountain. We're frontiers, and we're going to a new place, building a new company, new life, brand new employees, brand new direction. I would tell people, whether you're in that dry hole moment or that moment of indecisive, you don't know what you're doing, you're unhappy in your career. Hell, you could be a doctor and you're miserable after 20 years. Maybe you should sit down with a blank piece of paper and just take that blank piece of paper and put down, what do you like to do? What are you good at? What do you enjoy? And the reason it's important is you don't do things really well that you don't enjoy. The things you don't enjoy are actually the cement blocks holding you back from enjoying life. So when I got to start over, I said, what do I like? What do I not like? Well, this is what I wanted. I don't like having a bunch of brokers and salesmen. Got rid of my brokerage company. I don't like having people working for me who are not owners or bought in. Everybody who works for me now is bought in, part of an employee pool. Everybody benefits. I win, they win. I totally changed the structure, everything. I changed how I ran it. It no longer was the Troy Eckard show. So I would tell anybody today, if they sat in front of me and said, man, I'm at this point, I got this company, I've been doing it 3 years, I'm stuck, I can't move past it. All right, stop, get yourself a clean piece of paper and write down, what are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? And then how does that relate to what you've been doing? Forget that you've gone 5 years. If you had to start that business today, absent any money, forget money, pretend like you just inherited $1 billion, so money's not an issue. Would you do that business again today if you had to? Or you said, I'd never do it. What would you change about that business? How would you grow it? People always find themselves in containers. I'm in a container. I own a business. I put this much money. I can't raise money because I had to give up equity. No, forget that. If you had all the money, what would you do? I'd open up 5 shops, have centralized accounting, do centralized marketing. I would expand to this market and that market where I know it's much better, which would dilute my cost, increase my revenue. Okay, so what you're saying is you got to grow or you're going to die. You're either a river or you're a pond, right? If you're a river, it changes every day and it's vibrant, but it's moving and it's fast and you got to rock and roll and you got to be willing to change. But that's how you survive. If you're a pond, you're an endpoint. Nothing but bad stuff happens. You got algae and dead plants and animals and catfish and sponge and ponds die and they go dry. My dad told me that. And you got a choice. Either you're a river or you're a pond. I'm a river. I'm like the Mississippi River. I change every day. I rock and roll 24/7. So the thing I could really count on for myself when I went through my block is I started with a blank page and said, the world is yours, buddy. You can do anything you want to, man. You can be president of the United States. You can pull it off. But what do you want to do? What do you like to do? What are you good at? What are you going to enjoy the rest of your life? And that's how I think people should approach every one of their roadblocks is it's a blank piece of paper.
And you mentioned also a beautiful point about 95% of the BS in our head that we're worried about and fearful about never actually happens.
And I got to tell you, besides the person that gave me the cross, which I can't remember who gave me that cross, was also that statement. The statement they said is, they said, Troy, your mind's like a sprinkler head. You're going, if this goes wrong, this goes wrong, you can't pay the bank. You were going through everything going wrong in your life, and you started over again. You're literally driving yourself crazy.
Yeah.
And they said, look, trust me, 95% of what you think is going to go wrong never happens. And for some reason, it was like ingraining it with a laser in my head. And I just went, so I got audited by the IRS about 6 years ago. They came in, they told me about the IRS. I said, oh, it's okay, I don't care. They go, you're getting audited by the IRS. I don't care, I don't steal money, and I don't play with the IRS. I don't do it, it doesn't bother me. I got an IRS notice 3 weeks ago because I make a lot of money. They're coming after me again. I'm like, okay, whatever. My team, we got a hack about 7 months ago. They stole about $500,000 out of one of our accounts, right? We got back about half of it. It was protocol violation by one of my staff, but I didn't fire the staff member, it just happened. They all walk in, they look at me, they go, man, we got some bad news. Well, what's the bad news? They go, well, we got hacked, this is what happened. I said, how much money was this? $530,000. I said, okay, can you get it back? We don't know. I said, okay, we'll get out of here. I got stuff to do. Go try to make up $500,000 back. We got to find out what happened, what protocol is. And I think with the 95% is, if you get to the point knowing if it's not terminal, if it's like you being my pilot and you go at 18,000 feet, you go, I forgot to put gas in the engine, that's a problem, right? That one's not going to solve itself.
Right.
But 95% of everything else, it always works out. We create our own stress in life. We create our own failures. We visualize failure, which prevents us from success. We put a cap on our success by saying, if I just get to two stores, I'm really doing well. If I get to 10 million net worth, I'm doing good. I think I can still catch Elon myself.
How do we expand
I'm
that?
just joking, by the way.
How do humans expand that? Or how do you recommend people expand that?
Well, here's what I think. I think we all have.
Through experience? It has to be experiential. You have to try that thing, make that sales call, shadow that guy or gal. You know, obviously how it manifests could be physically different.
I think the first part is you've got to be true to yourself.
Know thyself.
It's no corner.
Be thyself. Yeah.
And the corner is if you and I sat here and said, okay, I'm going to draw a picture for you. There's a big balloon and it's red and both of us can have that balloon. In your mind, you're seeing a balloon at the fair and it's pretty big and it's there and it's good, right? And it's part of a carnival act. I'm thinking of a blimp. And so when we use what we have in our own personalities, it removes the constraints and it expands the possibility. So like the real estate deal I'm looking at, okay? Perfect example. The guy selling it to me is a local guy, been there forever. He thinks it's an okay piece. He thinks you might be able to buy it for X and sell it for X times 1.25, right? A developer I'm talking to goes, I think it's really good. We can do this, put an old folks home on it. We can do all kinds of stuff. I go, okay, great. I said, well, here's what I want to do. I want to buy that 371 acres. Then I want to buy another 3,000 acres around it. And I want to build one of the largest high-end resorts in North Texas. And I want to put a golf course in it and everything else. So I want to spend about $40 to $80 million buying the land, another $40 million developing it, and turn it into a $500 million property. They're like, oh my God. See, the problem is I've been looking at it for a week. I can already see the front gate. I already know the combination of the code to get in the gate. I can already tell you what kind of cocktails are serving by the pool. My brain has already gone way past it because know thyself is, I don't want to go just put 300 acres into a bunch of residential lots. How boring. But to them, that's super exciting. So when we look at that red balloon, you're excited about your balloon. I'm excited about my blimp. And let's talk about these mastermind people, for example. I find 9.5 of them are full of bull, and they absolutely are the most. The only thing they know how to sell you is on their memberships and all the nonsense they do. And I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody that's truthfully, ethically, and correct in what they do. But what I find in today's world, everybody wants to be cured. Everybody wants the fast cure to be a real estate expert, the fast cure to be a Bitcoin expert. Everybody wants the fast cure. There's two things you can't replace: common sense, okay, and effort.
I thought you were going to say oil and gas.
Effort, why? If you want to be good at multifamily, go to 500 multifamily conferences, talk to 500 multifamily developers, walk into 500 apartments and talk to the property manager, the landscape guy, and go sit in the parking lot, watch how many cars come in and out, and look at the type of cars coming. You and I could go right now, any apartment, you pick any apartment, and we could do a complete demographic on who lives there. Married, single, kids, divorced, low income, high income, ethnicity, the whole 9 yards, by sitting at the gate watching the cars. Now, why would an investor who wants to put in millions of dollars in multifamily not do that? Laziness, complacent. So I think that you have to know yourself. Do you really want to be worth $100 million? How many people do you think are worth $100 million in the United States right now? We went through this the other day off camera.
Yeah, maybe a few thousand.
Okay, so the last number I pulled up, there's about 12,000 people in the United States worth over $100 million. I would have thought there'd been more than I thought, with movie stars and actors and stuff. I look at people's net worth all the time because I like to see people who think they're worth a ton of money. You go, he's only worth 15 million bucks. What are you talking about? He's only worth 18 million. It's not disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's the arrogance they have to make people think that they're almighty and it's a movie star, right? You look at some of the people worth $100 million, you don't know who they are. They're quiet. There are people in this town that are worth $100 million. You'd have no clue they had 10 bucks their name.
And there's no Gucci, Louis Vuitton,
Not a
Ferrari,
thing.
none of that.
Not a thing.
Pickup truck and a.
So I think in mentoring to people or anybody watching this video, what I would say is I have spent my whole life around millionaires. From the guys worth $1 million and $1, barely qualified, to a guy worth $2 billion. And I've been in their private investment groups. I've been to their houses. And I got to tell you, nobody cares what you're worth. Nobody cares how much money you have, how many houses you have, how many buildings you have. You know what they care about? Is you. They care about your personality. If you can't be friends with somebody, you can't resonate or have dinner with somebody, and you have to spend all your time bragging on what you've done, you're really penniless in my view. You're penniless. I hang around, half my clients have no idea what I'm worth. They have no clue. They don't even know what I do. I don't care. It's not important to me. And I've learned that from my most wealthy clients. My most wealthy clients are some of the nicest people I ever met. I could put them in this room and be like, that is the nicest group of people I have ever met. And I think that's because I only want to work for nice people. They like me. I love working for them. And I think that's one of the things about mentoring. The deal I was on yesterday is all this about raising capital. And I just wanted to tell them, y'all sound like a bunch of chickens in a chicken coop, man. You're barking off the keywords, like, based on the bootstrapping and the metrics, and we got to do the analysis of this. They're using all the keywords. They've obviously been to 5 mastermind camps, and they're all saying the same word. They go, y'all sound like my chicken coop, and I'm, just a bunch of cackling. Why don't you simply say it? I got a great product. It's phenomenal. I need capital. $1 million doesn't even get me to the front door. I need $5 million, but I don't know how to do it. Why don't you suck up your humility and ask somebody who knows how to raise money and call me? I'll help you for free. I don't want a thing. I had a guy call me and ask me to promote a medicine that I used that worked really good. So he wants me to be a spokesman of the company. He goes, hey, we'll pay you endorsement. I said, I don't want a dime. I want nothing. He goes, why? I said, what good is my endorsement if you pay me? Why don't I just tell the people, I tried your product. You were a great doctor. It worked. It solved my problem. It's phenomenal. If you have a need, go see him. Maybe it works for you too. I said, I don't want a dime. Yeah, but you're a busy guy. I said, I don't care. If you don't give back in the world, what are you? You're just a leech.
A taker. Yeah.
Taker. I'm not a taker. I'm a giver. People call me all the time. I'll pay you a fee. I'll give you this. If you help me sell a client on this, I don't need your money. I don't want your money. I don't care. Even if I needed your money, I wouldn't take your money. You got to have something that is more meaningful in your life than just accumulating wealth. Sam 100%. Walton died and nobody gave a rat's rear end except for his kids.
Yeah. What do they say? Some people are so poor, all they have is money.
That's it.
Yeah.
I like to tell people, I was so broke, I had to look up to see the gutter. And I worked my way out of that.
And I want to ask you this before we wrap up here with one last question. Why is oil and gas to you such a valuable asset and to the world? And, just high level for people who are considering investing in it or learning more about it. Can you talk a little bit about the power of it, both short and long term?
Well, I'm going to give you the fundamental basics. Ready? We're an industrialized nation. We've become an industrialized world. The customer, the consumer, doesn't care about saving the planet. That single mother needs to put food on the table and heat in the house and fuel in her car. So this $10 trillion facade of green energy, we just wasted $10 trillion trying to convince people that solar and wind and hydrogen was going to work. What would $10 trillion have done in creating education and supporting teachers and firemen and single mothers, right? How much money could we have done in third world countries in South America and Latin America and Asia and Africa could we have done with $10 trillion? So I didn't, but they pulled a facade, and here's why, and why I like oil and gas. You could take transportation and create electric cars, but every part of that car is made from a barrel of oil. So what we have is we have an asset. It's the only natural resource on the planet that when you use it today, it's gone forever. When I burn that gallon of gas, it's never to be on this planet again. When I burn that molecule of natural gas in my fireplace, it's never going to be here again. But you got silver and nickel and lithium, it's all going to be here. It stays. It's the only water. It's the only natural resource that disappears. But it's also the only natural resource that every single industrialized human being uses, consumes every single day. The clothes you're in, the shoes you're in. So why is oil and gas important? It's finite and diminishing. It requires a much higher price to harvest it in the future. So I'm going to have this escalation in price. It's incredibly difficult. The barrier to entry to own oil and gas is incredibly difficult. Why? It's the smartest, most wealthy oil companies buy as much as they can buy. $300 billion in the last 24 months. So for an individual accredited investor to have access to oil and gas is damn near impossible. But when you add on top of it the crooks, the liars, the cheats, and the thieves, which is 95% of people who raise money in oil and gas are crooked or they're felons. Look them up online and you'll see. No track record, no performance. What they're doing is they're just suckering investors in because they're ringing the dinner bell. Drill, baby, drill is like a dinner bell. And that dinner bell is taking them straight to slaughter. So from a short-term perspective, you now have President Trump being elected who's going to come in and take away all the subsidies for solar and for wind. You're going to see the largest number of bankruptcies in solar farms and wind farms, and all that $10 trillion is going to be gone. It doesn't work. For oil and gas to compete with solar and wind, oil has to sell for $150 a barrel. Because with the subsidies gone, they would have to have $150 a barrel to make them equally viable. What's crushed green energy is the fact that oil prices dropped below $70 a barrel. It got so cheap that wind and solar at $150 per energy unit makes it uneconomical. And you got everybody saying it's good for the planet. What's good for the planet? Have you seen the mines these kids have to mine for lithium? Have you seen the damage it does? Have you seen these windmill farms, these boneyards of all these fiberglass windmills that'll never rot, never go away sitting out there? All the birds are killing? Look, here's the thing. what we really ought to focus on, like any business, whether it be the drug trade, the drug trafficking, or energy, why do we focus on minimizing the use of it instead of trying to change which source we get it from? If you want to stop fossil fuel from growing, then what you do in Texas, I mean, I'm looking out the window, just tons and tons of big trucks and SUVs. Say it's real simple. In Texas, on our highways, any car that's 1,500 pounds and lighter, you get to drive for free. Over 1,500 pounds, it's $1,000 per 100. Troy, your truck weighs 3,200 pounds, so that's 1,700 pounds of additional weight. You owe us $17,000 to drive that Super Duty truck you have on the driveway. I get to make a choice. I don't care. I'll pay the $17,000. I'll drive my truck. You will see that highway go down by 80%, and what you'll see is carpooling and buses, and you'll see people sharing. This is not about making up a false $10 trillion facade. It's about taking what we have today and saying, how do we make it more efficient? I am excited as heck about Elon Musk helping President Trump, and I'll tell you why. This guy will be given a challenge. I bet you Trump does this. How do we get more refining in the U.S.? Well, President Trump, here's what we'll do.
There's only so many sites too in the U.S., right? You were telling me.
Well, drilling has only, the dinosaurs only died in so many places, right? There's only so many buried Grand Canyons, right?
How many are there for the context?
About nine buried. The equivalent of Grand Canyon-sized reservoirs exist in about 9 areas. Pennsylvania in the Marcellus, the Utica up in Ohio and Virginia. You have the Wilson Basin in North Dakota. You've got the big Denver Jewel Basin in the Colorado Rockies. You have Permian Basin, which is like Saudi Arabia, the U.S. You've got Eagle Ford Shale. You got the Haynesville Shale. You got we do up in Oklahoma and the Anadarko. But the relevant point is,
and that serves. Sorry, just to interject one more time. That serves 300 million people in the U.S.
Yeah, we got 500 rigs drilling. We got 553 rigs drilling oil wells to supply 360 million Americans with oil and gas.
And there's no signs of us running out per se anytime
Not
soon.
even close. Oh, it is money. We're only getting about 9% recovery now. If there's 50 million barrels in place with today's drilling and technology, we're only recovering 90%. The same wells we're drilling today were considered uneconomical 10 years, 15 years ago. They weren't even economical.
And when you say, I'll ask one more question. This is going to sound kind of novice. I know we'll wrap up here, but
that's all right.
When it comes to, you said dinosaurs, they call it fossil fuel. To the average person in layman's terms who knows nothing, what's the correlation between where the dinosaurs died and how that turns into oil and gas?
So it's real simple. So today, modern times, if you drive between Phoenix, Arizona, down to Tucson, down I-10, it's about a 75-mile drive. You're driving at basically the desert floor. It's flat. But you look off to the east and the west, you see mountain ranges. But they're fairly bald. They're kind of rocky, right? Well, over time, all the plants and animals that were on top of those hills, they came down by wind and solar and erosion and fluid movement. And all the dead plants and animals over the last 100 million years, they died and they're now in the desert floor. But if you go pick up that sand in the desert floor, it's got all kinds of, it's not just sand. It's not like beach sand where the water just flows through your hand. It's got kind of all different particles. So if you take that and you pressure cook that for 100 million years, it becomes almost like wet concrete. So it's tons and tons of dead plants and animals, but there's no porosity, no pore spaces, and the pore spaces don't connect, which is called permeability. So for years and years, we've drilled through these big, thick, 500-foot, 1,000-foot buried wet concrete shale formations. We go, man, it is loaded with oil and gas. It won't flow. Can't make it flow. So George Mitchell, a super stud putzer, says, I'm going to go down and figure out how to make that wet concrete flow, and I'm going to figure it out. And he spent 13, 14 years doing it. He finally said, well, what I got to do, I got to take that 7.5-inch well bore, instead of going straight down, I'm only getting 200 feet of production. What if I took it down and used mechanical tools and I bent it sideways and I go out a half a mile or a mile? Now I've got the equivalent of 200 wells in a single well, but it cost me an extra $1 million. It's only producing, instead of 20 barrels, now it's producing 80 barrels a day. Still not economical. Well, how would you get wet concrete in the driveway to work? Well, if I went poured water all over my concrete driveway, I couldn't get a thimbleful of water to drink. I'd still die of dehydration. But if I took a jackhammer, like this blue line on this table here, and I jackhammered all the way down my driveway, by natural attrition, the access of those cracks, those fractures, will allow that water to migrate to the point of least resistance, and they're going to come to that crack. And all of a sudden, I got this stream of water going out of my driveway. So George Mitchell said, let me drill them horizontally. I'll come along and inject sand and water. I'll overpressure it. If the reservoir is 5,000 pounds per square inch, I'll inject it at 7,000 pounds per square inch, and I'm basically jackhammering the reservoir at 1.5 miles in the ground. And he fractured it all along the path. Those molecules now came from not 5 or 10 feet away from the wellbore. Now it's coming from almost 2 miles of reservoir.
Wow.
Now the 20 barrel a day well went to 80 barrel a day well. Now it went to 800 barrels a day.
What year was this where he discovered
And
this?
about 1997 is when he finally figured it out.
And this guy must have became a billionaire.
Yeah, you're sitting on one of the largest gas reservoirs in the entire United States under the city of Dallas-Fort Worth.
Wow.
The Barnett Shale started right here. The problem is it's dry gas. We like oil because it's worth more money.
Yeah.
But he discovered it right here. And the industry told him for 15 years, George Mitchell is an old crazy coot. He's trying to make wet concrete shale produce. What an idiot. Well, after 1997, about 3 years later, is when I believe Chief Oil and Gas bought him out for $4.4 billion. He's not such an idiot after all. So I think that's part of the thing your listeners should remember is one of the hardest things to do is to know you're right and stick with your guns. I cannot tell you how many deals I had. I did not stick to my guns. I let my investors pressure me when I was younger, in my 30s and 40s. And I look back now and go, I was sitting on a $200 million asset and I let my clients pressure me out of it. I didn't have the guts or the spine to stick with it. So today I'm a totally different person. I'm looking, I'm 60 years old. I'm right. You have no clue what you're talking about. I don't care if you're worth 100 million or a billion. Shut up, get in the back of the bus. I'm leading this bus. And if you don't like it, get off of it. But I am the expert and I'm not being cocky. I just know I'm right.
Yeah.
I joke with my clients a lot and I said, look, I'm not arrogant. I'm just right. There's a difference.
Yeah. What about in terms of, and this is the last question, you have my word
I don't
before
care
the
about
last
that.
one, is what about the returns? I know obviously that might be private or proprietary.
It's not proprietary.
But what are the returns that people in oil and gas over, relative time horizons can expect? Well, assuming they're private investors or accredited investors.
At our level, what we tell our clients is we want our mineral rights to generate a 10% rate of return or better the first 5 years. And we're averaging almost 13% cash on cash. So we're beating our expectation. When you drill a well, we want to make north of 30% returns. We want to make our money back in 3 years or less. But it requires you buying at the right price. The old saying is you make your money on the buy side. So many investors, probably 9 out of 10 investors call me, they're in all these deals. I'm like, you know that well cost 10 million, but they charged you 40 million? They did? Yeah, just do the math backwards. They charged you 40 million for a well that cost 10. So you wrote the check for 100 grand, they put 75,000 profit in their pocket. You have a dry hole before you started. Oh my God.
Wow.
So the economics are simple. If you can buy into direct ownership like Eckard offers, you should generate a 10+% return on minerals. You should generate a 25 to 40% return on drilling.
Annually?
Annually.
Yeah.
And wells decline, but you should have your money back in 36 months. You should have minerals generating you money for the next 25 to 50 years. And now that we've got I think we're at 92,000 acres of minerals. We cover, like 2 million acres of mineral rights in oil and gas, 7,700 wells produced, and we're generating 65 to 75 million a year in revenue. Next year, we're pricing out well over $100 million. No expenses, no bills, no cash calls, just cash out the door. It's hard for clients not to like me. They may not like who I vote for. They may not like my personality. They may not like my comment. Yeah. I think I'm pretty funny. They don't, but they're like, but we sure love you every 30 days and those checks go out the door.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last question I have for you, and we'll talk a little bit more about Eckard Enterprises before we go, is, when Troy Eckard is dead, gone, and nothing but a pile of dust. Obviously, you still have so much ambition for all these projects you're doing. You've had quite the roller coaster journey. But what do you hope that the Troy Eckard and the Eckard Enterprises mission is all about when you look back?
So me or the company, because there's a difference. There's two, and I finally have learned the distinction because I used to be I was the company, right? Mm-hmm. As a company, I want to set the bar so high for integrity, ethics, transparency, and execution of success that no one can ever touch what we do. And every day I want to challenge myself to be better than yesterday. I want this company to set the bar so high for the next 20, 40, 50 years of how to invest in oil and gas, because I think it's a great asset class. And I think most investors stay away from it because there's so many crooks in it. They stay away from it because they don't understand it. And to be candid with you, there's so much money to be made in oil and gas. I want to become more of a mainstream asset class, and I want to do that through education, information, right? So that's what I want the company to have. And I want my kids that are running it, I want my son-in-laws that are running it, I want them to have the next 20, 30 years just to keep building on the success we've already built. So that's from a company perspective. From my perspective, it's kind of different. It's either what I want people to think of me or my kids to me. The one thing I want my kids to think of me is there was nobody tougher, nobody more resilient. You couldn't kill him like a cockroach. You couldn't stomp him in the ground. The guy was never tired. I don't know the word no. I don't know how to quit. I don't know how to give in. And I think it's made them stronger. And what I went through back in 2008 and 9, my kids got to witness that. And having them come work for me and having them come sit side by side, not only did it make me incredibly proud of them, But to this day, they're like, Dad, we have no idea how you did that. You are the most resilient, most unbelievable, optimistic. You never even thought you were going to fail. You knew you were going to succeed. And he said, it's given us the drive of a life. And to leave a legacy like that's pretty fun. So, there's an old saying about, I want to slide in my grave with whiskey in one hand, dice in the other, blah, 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 let's do it again. Well, that used to be my mantra because I was like, I wake up every day having fun. I have never yet woken up a single day in my 40-year career regretting going to work. I never have. I get up, I got up this morning, I think at 5:10, my alarm went off. I was up and dressing out the door in 25 minutes. I was at the office at 6 o'clock. I love what I do. I'm not a workaholic. I mean, people would define me as one. I just have a hell of a lot of fun creating wealth. I have, right now, what I see in the oil and gas industry, it'd be like...
Sounds fun.
It would be like the 1980s when you get to have the land grant. They say, we're going to give each one of you a horse and a stick. You get to go put your stake in the ground, get one free 640-acre square mile for free. I got a whole slew of horses I'm ready to run because for the first time in 40 years, you as a private investor, Troy, my clients, new clients, we can actually play side by side with Exxon on the same damn rules and the same buying power. It's never occurred in my career. And I don't think any investors really understand how good it is. I tell them every day, you have no idea today how good it is for you. You don't know. I do. Because I spent 36 years climbing up Niagara Falls with a spoon. It's tough.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You've been through it all.
Yeah.
It's wild.
But it makes you stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, to be candid with you, you said something a while ago.
Character, yeah.
Yeah, you said something a while ago, and I was going to make a comment to it. It's like, if you worry too much about what people think of you, then they really defined you. Like, well, he's too mouthy. Well, then I better not be mouthy. He talks too fast. I talk fast as heck, right? He talks too fast. He does too many videos. If you worry about what other people tell you, they have defined you. And what I love about this country, and what I love about being an entrepreneur, what I love about what we do, is you and I could walk out tomorrow with a pair of jeans, a white t-shirt, a pair of white shoes, not even an ID and not even cash in our pocket. And I would bet you and I in a week would both have a car, a place to live, and 10 jobs, and an advance payment of probably $10,000 a piece because we talk people into it, right? What other country in the world has the opportunities of America? And so when I hear people crying and whining about this, that, and the other, I'm like, do you understand? Have you been to Guatemala? Have you been to South? Have you been around the world? This is the epitome of what God created as the most free and beautiful country on the planet. What you don't even understand how good we got it. And I wake up every day and say that to myself. I wake up and I'm like, all right, it's another day to go kick the world's tail. Let's go, baby.
I love it.
Yeah, that's the way I feel.
I love it. My man, Troy.
Appreciate it, brother.
What a beautiful way to end it. Thank
Thanks.
you so much for sharing that and sharing your story here at Eckard. And we're honored to share it with the audience.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys so much. Guys, make sure to follow Troy. And where can people find you if they want to get in touch with
EckardEnterprises.com. That's the website.
Awesome. Make sure to follow Troy. Check out all the stuff coming out of his camp and get educated on oil and gas. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And until next time, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Comment down below. Let us know what questions you want to ask next time. And as always, live with passion. Go get those dreams. We'll see you on the next episode.